That's right. I have wrestled with an alligator. I done tussled with a whale. I done handcuffed lightning, throw thunder in jail.
You can't stop me.
I'm going to win.
It ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward.
I won't quit.
I'll just keep getting stronger.
Stronger?
Stronger.
This is what we normally do now. Now it's rolling starts. Welcome to the pump. This might not be a normal podcast you do. We got Sam Pogue on, but I've had Sam on with our other podcast, Fitness Devil, which is now Eat Free, Lift Hard. And I'm sorry, Andrew. It's one of the two. It's like a die hard, lift free, diet hard.
Lift free, diet hard.
Which is like, a super good name. Like I like my name, but it's perfect for Andrew. But we've had you on twice, so this would be the new iteration of this, which we haven't had you on. But it's the pump. We talk about bodybuilding and nostalgia of lifting and powerlifting. We're not going to talk about any of that, but kind of, because I think the podcast 2 times ago we made fun of John Rusin, and in a lovingly way. We're like, John Rusin was one of the reasons why everyone got smaller, and that kind of has this large talk about fitness pros and what became popular and what is kind of molded, we'll call it the fit pro industry, but things that look vastly different that they did 7 years ago, and they look different than they did 3 years ago. And I think we can all honestly talk about it in jest, but also in a productive manner in which we're going to make fun of shit, obviously, but I think there's some gems for people.
We also are self-deprecating enough that I think it's okay, because everyone knows we're making fun of ourselves in this entire conversation.
This is good, because we're gonna not let Sam talk for a while, because he's gonna talk a lot. But we make fun of the Twitter posts right now, because it's like, it's not short form kind of is, but it's like it's like writing it, but then it's on visual, which is like totally dumb. And then we hate simple information because we think it hoodwinks everyone to believing dumb shit. But then now we're doing it because it's ironically funny, but it also works. And so we'll make fun of it, but we'll totally dip our feet in it sometimes. It is what it is. Anyways, welcome, Sam.
Thanks, guys. It's a pleasure to jump on and always get to chat. It's always fun to talk shop and different iterations of conversations, right?
It'll probably be the same iteration of it. There's just now we're in tank tops as opposed to a little bit more fit pro-y. But for those who don't know, Sam, maybe just do a quick background, or I don't know, kind of what, because you're in a different spot now. What's Sam about?
Yeah, super changed within the last 24 hours, realistically. So in fitness, starting in 2008 in America, and obviously a lot of the places, it was an awesome recession, which is a great time to graduate university, when it's not just a time when you can't get a job in your field, but you can't get a job in general. So I took a job selling memberships at 24 Hour Fitness in a last-ditch effort to not have to move home. And a really piss-poor attitude about it, because I had a boss who's 19 that didn't go to college, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing, Jesus, right? And then it was for me, I look at fitness so unique because I was an undersized late blooming athlete, right? But I would be on teams because I work really hard, I'm okay, and I'm just a good energetic teammate, right? So but senior year of baseball, I didn't play in any, right? I pinch ran, I got a couple pinch hits, right? But I wasn't getting a ton of offers, but I can play, right? And not terrible. And so I'm there. And so when I looked at fitness, I would do all the extra things, go to the extra practices, go to the workouts, but I wouldn't go home and do push-ups, right? That just wasn't a thought that I had. Whereas some kids you look at, or some people get into fitness because they see the comic book characters, they look at the superhero sized athletes that we looked up to as children. And while I did, I love sports, that was just never the thought. I would have loved to play pro baseball as a kid, but it quickly was becoming, it wasn't a track. And I also found that I liked the business end more, right? I love the wheeling and dealing of the business side. And for me, just with my attitude, my frequency, you can kind of tell, I didn't want to get trapped in this world of sales, right? Which is a big fear for me, going to college, doing the thing. That's what I didn't want to be, is just the lifelong sales rep. Right. And because back then in late 2000s or early 2000s, that was still kind of door-to-door sales, right? You still had door-to-door copy sales. You still had network marketing in that kind of capacity, right? Knock on doors. Hey, what's up? Because people hadn't fully evangelized the internet, right? You still have people I don't need the internet. And so we watched that, and that really kind of altered the way I guess maybe approached my career, because, you know, once, you know, getting out of school and realizing there wasn't like this job, right? You think you go to university and there's just a job waiting for you. There's nothing. You're like, oh shit, what do I do? And then it was like, oh, all right, well, I'll do gym sales, right? Like, I like sports, I can talk, this is whatever. And at least I was in like the affluent area of town, right? The hip, trendy area. So I'm meeting like Nike execs and Wyden Kennedy, which is like a big time advertising firm. Like, their offices are here, so they're coming into this gym. So at least I have the opportunity. Can I impress you while I'm selling you? Be like, what are you doing here? Selling memberships, kid, right? Which is what like I prided myself getting. And so I was also like, well, it's not a bad skill to learn how to work out, right? Like, as we age, and you guys are coaches working in nutrition a lot, that the art of learning how to work out, like learning how to work on your car or patch a wall in your house, is a very useful skill now that we're all in our 30s or as new parents, right? Like, you're like, wow, sure, we got into it because we're like, we like the tenacity or the effort of powerlifting or bodybuilding, like that thing. But like, what a useful thing to have gotten into, right? To have developed as a hobby. And you guys work with people who are coming into it for the first times in their 30s, 40s, who have never even ventured down this hole sometimes. And so now it's like, wow, that was really handy. And so thankfully I got in with a really good group, you know, Tony Gracia, who owns Industrial
Dude, you got
Strength,
in with a really good group.
right out of the gate, right? And like, then immediately Lance Koffel, who was one of the first RKC instructors with Pavel, and Philip Snell, who's an instructor for DNS, right? Chris Duffin's down the road. So, you know, getting introduced into fitness, because for me, I didn't go to school for fitness. I went to school for entrepreneurship, business, communications, you know, talking out my ass. And to then only be in this industry as a result of it's a weekend cert, but then to now have spent 12 years into it and having a very different trajectory than most anyone ever has had in this field, to look back and say, well, why is it so hard for this industry to be successful, right? Like, I'm working out currently at a 24-hour fitness again, and to have watched the trainers as I'd like warm up, you can pinpoint who's who. Oh, you think you're the big geek in the room, right? And how much you know, and you're just, I'm trying to get along with people. And
this is why I wanted you on, though. So like, and this is maybe where you kind of breeze over it, but like, you kind of undersold it, because you have a different route in fitness. That the normal route is the thing that we are self-deprecating about and we make fun of constantly, is like, you kind of become a trainer, you train, fucking, I found all these Instagram people, they're doing this, I'm going to copy them, I'm going to do this, and this, and it never works, and they never really make that much money. And then they're like, well, I'm going to get into online training, I'm going to take the online training thing that's big, and then they do that and they don't make any money. And then it's just like, well, like, maybe it's nutrition. It's like, well, I don't know anything about nutrition because I just cared about weights. Anyways, it's like this whole thing that you can kind of see, and you didn't do any of that. You basically went right to fucking well, on it. But I don't know. I want to hear because I think that the reason why you're successful doing what you're doing is because your route is different, but you were exposed to a lot of things that maybe everyone else should probably learn.
Absolutely. Well, and that's the thing. Like, while I don't think, you know, my first lens of perspective was mechanical stress, progressive overload, periodized programming, right? Getting stronger. Yeah. And to be able to see it from the lens of like, okay, if we don't want to deviate into positions that might potentiate injury, then the stronger you are, the easier it is to resist being in that position, right? Like, so getting stronger is our biggest bang for our buck, right? Like, and that's going to obviously build muscle strength, improve your performance. Well, that's 2008. So we have to remember the internet's still coming through, and we have to remember that content marketing is still coming into fruition, to where now some of these coaches who've been doing it for 15 years prior are now putting out online programs, right? So I happen to, because Tony introduced us to Joe DeFranco, right? Yeah. And that it opened up like Smitty, Jay Ferrugia, Tony Gentlecore, Eric Cressy, right? In that realm of strength and athletes. And that allowed me to really attach myself to fitness in a way of, oh, I see how this applies to the thing I really like, right? And I'm watching. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of routes in nutrition and fitness, and it gets really confusing. But the pro segment of athletes, just because there's a lot of money there, there's going to end up being a lot of great trickle-down information. While what Jake Arrieta needs for his offseason may not be what Grandma Betty needs, right? There's still a common through line of things that is appropriate and what we know as best practices, right? And so, you know, when we're getting into this industry, like it's really easy for people to want to start carving out their own, like, I'm here to show the world that my methods work, right? And for me, I think the way I'm looking at this now is I never came into it like I was trying to be a coach and I was trying to like pronounce this is what I think is right. So it allowed me just to go, oh, what Joe's saying is this, what Smitty's saying is this, what Eric is saying is this. Oh, it all kind of, okay, it's this, right? And then by the time I even became a coach working with people, I'd already competed in a strongman, a strong person, Olympic lifting, and a powerlifting meet. So I had a good idea of what it took to create an experience of like creating change. And, or at least I felt for myself, right? Because I didn't lift as a kid. It wasn't just I went in and bro pumped and then like, I can teach you my methods. Which
no, that is the normal. I don't know. Jeb's around too. Like that's what you do.
Well, because the first lens of perspective of fitness was bodybuilding, right? Because look at the images we saw through the fitness journey. It's, you know, you saw Jane Fonda, Richard Simmons. Then we have to remember early 90s powerlifting was on TV, right? And then all of a sudden that produced like the world's strongest man because we have to keep going bigger. And then all of a sudden Arnold kind of comes around, right? And is like, holy shit, look at what someone can be. But we had the Lou Ferrignos, we had the Rock Hudsons who were like superhuman size, right? And then to start seeing what strength fitness could start doing, we're seeing it in the athletic department, right? Look at the size of these athletes now, right? You have high schoolers who are 6'4", 220-pound receivers, and you're like, you're 16? You haven't even hit puberty yet. And you're like, what? And it's like,
yeah, well, I went to high school in Texas, so.
Yeah, I mean, they're freaks, right?
The average lineman at my high school for the senior A team was 6'5", 305.
In high school. Like I was 5. What was I in high school? Senior year, I was like 5'6", 140 pounds, maybe.
I was a $150 at like 33.
And it's just like it's such a weird thing to look at. And you're like, how are you this large of a human? Right. And it's so, you know, getting to look at it, fitness was a hobby for me first. And I got to watch how I guess the big picture played. And it was less about the marketing aspect of it, right? Because the marketing image that we get from fitness is, hey, do my sequencing of crap. Yeah. And that's superior to anybody else's sequence of crap. And that's the ticket that's going to get you results that you've never seen before. And it's like, and experienced coaches are like, oh, it's just shit stuck together in a time format, right? Like the ticket wasn't you doing that 90-day workout on your TV. It was that for 90 days, you moved your body. You also probably just consciously did better things, right? You maybe had a salad where you would have had a burger, right? You're just calorically making better adjustments because that's what you're finding success in. But then when you get out of it, like you look at the reliancy that people have developed on these programs, it's like, how many times do we see it? Like, oh, I'm out of shape again. I'll just do the P90X thing again or whatever. And it's like, well, because we're not taught why. And I think that's the thing that powerlifting, Olympic lifting, strength-based training or adaptation-based training in bodybuilding, for example, is where coaches need to understand what happens, right? And how to achieve change, because the education that we get as coaches is looking at like, well, the thoracolumbar juncture should have 15 degrees of freedom and actual in through hip flexion. And we have blah, 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 blah. And then we have to take this coach and somehow translate that into, yeah, girl, that's going to give you the booty that whoever's going to want to smack. Right. And it's like, okay. So now you don't know how to give the message. And now, like, you know, for me coming in this that didn't go to school for it and trying to be overly scientific, right? I'm playing catch up all the time, right? Yeah. I can't tell you what happens cellularly when I poke your skin and what happens up the chain.
Doesn't matter.
I can coach you through good movement because I've been taught enough by great coaches, and here's the whys, and I can give you the 10,000 foot view of here's why you should be doing it, here's what it's helping. But if we have to go deeper than it, then you should go see these other people who make a living going down the rabbit hole. But the baseline level of coaching isn't really taught in terms of movement.
Well, it's almost like and this is, I don't know what we always kind of talk together on Facebook and stuff, but there's like those deep understandings, which is good, but they're really shitty at communicating it. And then there's also like, there's two realms. There's like fitness knowledge and then there's marketing knowledge. And Jeb and I, and probably you and Jeb, always make fun of the people who are really good at marketing because their fucking knowledge is way too simple. And I don't know where the answer is, but it's weird because we're in this conundrum now where simple sells, but simple doesn't work. And then we all end up getting pissed off.
It's the dichotomy of human psychology is that we want to constantly make complicated things simple and simple things complicated. And I think Sam and I, what we were kind of jamming on a little bit is talking about how all these coaches that want to emulate, to your point earlier, Dean, they want to emulate these successful marketing coaches. I don't even want to fucking associate with them. Like, I just have no fucking desire. Like, I'll do play the little fucking game. But like, if I don't want to talk to them, I don't want to go hang out with them at seminars. I don't want to be around them. Like, that's not my people. And it's nothing against them. I mean, I just think they're fucking douches, and I wouldn't like them if it was another job either. But like, so for me, it's I guess it's one of these things. It's like, why would you try to emulate someone that you don't actually want to be around?
Yeah.
Whereas, when I go to a seminar with Pat Davidson or Ben House or Smitty, I mean, you mentioned Smitty, he is probably the most genuine, greatest human being alive. So like, I want to spend time with those people. So therefore, when I see them put something out, I want to emulate that because I trust their values and I trust them implicitly among other domains besides just how much, lifting goes on.
Well, then that's where this weird nebulous is. And this is why it's kind of pertinent to have Sam on, because like, you're kind of getting into the realm of mentorship, but also into the realm of training. But we have this weird nebulous in the Fit Pro. I'll call it Fit Pro because I do like to separate the two, like lifting and Fit Pro. But this Fit Pro land of copycatting, I don't even know if people want to be that, but the thing that they want to be isn't the thing that they could be, and they could just be better at knowledge and lifting and communicating. And so there's this weird nebulous where nothing gets done except for really shitty versions of the top people that are they're already gone. Like they're successful, and then no one's actually progressing in this pool of, we'll call it medium range. I want to get to the next level because there's nothing special about them, even though there could be. But they're cutting themselves off at the knee by just being really shitty and simple versions of the other people that were really good at being good marketers and simple. Does that make sense? I know that's like a lot of wordplay, but that's kind of where I see this thing. And like, that's the things that you're essentially trying to fix right now because you've seen it. You went right to the source a lot of times. Like, all those people and you don't even copy what they're doing in terms of, you know what I mean? Like,
I get so mad when I see someone marketing themselves as like a kettlebell expert. And I'm like, I don't even market myself as a kettlebell expert, and I've taught workshops at NSCA without a CSCS or degree, right? It's like, not because I'm the best kettlebeller, it's because like I position myself well to coach. And I think that's the issue is like, I see is like, you have people who give a shit about this industry because it's a craft. The art of coaching someone to success. You look at the John Woodens, you look at the Mike Krzyzewskis, you look at the Belichick's of the world. You don't think that it's hard to manage that many people who are the best at what they do, right? Like, are you kidding me? Like it is amazing to see how good these people are at what they do, right? In the sports world, and to be the person that guides that ship. And then when you look at people's own journeys with their wellness and health, like, or finances or whatever, like the ability to coach someone is the ability to coach, right? There's a certain level of empathy and sympathy, but also you have to have a knowledge to be able to have seen and project what that person's going through, will go through to help them, right? In that narrative storybook lining of marketing, right? You're the guide, you're the Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Yoda of that person to help make sure that they get success, right? But success isn't a linear straight up path, right? It's like, you got to learn how to take some punches. And it's unfortunate that we live in a world that we don't prepare people to handle that sort of troubling situation and having to battle against that. But that's why a coach is so powerful. And that's why those of us who get mad about this is like, holy shit, like I give a shit about learning and making sure I do things the right way. And that was something I think that brought my career unique, is that when I moved to Austin, I was trying to get out of the fitness industry. I was like, okay, I don't want to open a gym. I don't want to go to school and get a post back. I don't want to, go to be a physical therapist. I don't want to go to more school. I was good at training in a 24-hour fitness environment because it's a sales environment, right? And I just happened to like working out and was good at delivering that as a system and an experience. But I wasn't marketing myself as like, I'm going to get you the biggest transformation. I was like, I'm going to help you develop a relationship with fitness that was better than you've ever had. We're going to have fun. You're going to learn some stuff. And I hope that you develop knowledge that you can use later. I love when my clients text me after years, every new gym they go to, new coach complimented my squat.
You didn't need a title on your Instagram to do that. Like, I help people get the best experience ever, thinking that that's what's going to make the money. You know what I mean? Like, you actually worked in the real fitness sphere.
Yeah. Well, the people who argue that you can be an online coach without having coached, I can't stand that message because it's disrespectful. It's disrespectful because I worked, I trained 15 hours a day at 24-hour fitness, right? At $65 a session. And it was like the amount of people you touch at that level in that space and what they're going through is you learn a ton. It is so much not about, yeah, sure. I hope they develop a relationship with the barbell because that's what I liked, but it was never about them deadlifting. It was about, holy shit, I just had an aha moment, right? I was able to get down on the ground and play with my kids. Oh, deadlifting me really has helped that. Great. You want to keep deadlifting? Awesome. Right? And so lifting just became the craft I got to share. Yeah. But coaching is just helping people, I think, right? And that's where people miss the boat, maybe.
Well,
and I think also, like you said, you were working 15 hours a day. If you haven't gone through that grind, and I know this, the fucking, I don't want to be like some fucking Gary Vee or some dumbass that's like you have to fucking work 20 hours a day, but like you do have to develop some sort of grit, some sort of work ethic, just I think is a basic human level. Like, it doesn't have to be in fitness. I don't care where it is, but you need to put in hours. And the online sell, it's the same bullshit lines that these guys sell about you're going to transform your body without doing any work. It's like, oh, you'll be an online coach and you don't have to, you'll be sipping fucking pina coladas on the beach in Hawaii in no time.
You got to put your time in on that.
I see what you're making. There's no way you're fucking sipping.
Well, and that's the other thing too. Like, the same thing goes with online coaching, and like why, like, we usually have strong opinions about this online nutrition space is like, because we have to put in the work before that, then we have to get into online, put the work in there. And then I can say confidently, based on what I see, most people haven't coached a fucking person online on nutrition in any volume or frequency ever, because all this shit, and that's what I mean. Like, there's this like nebulous of, we don't want to put the work in, but we're going to be here and I'm just going to jump there and be good at it. And I just don't want people to get in that trap because you suck. You fucking suck. And the people like,
I don't even do it. I like, it's not my space. I don't want to do it. Right. No. I might give you some guidance, like, hey, how can we add some things in that are going to help make you better? But if we get to the point, like, I am not going to do the Mike T. Nelson treatment and do the calorie macro tracking because
you don't get imposter syndromes because so like, that's another thing, like imposter syndrome. It's like, well, maybe you just fucking suck. Like, you should actually be worried about what people think about you.
Absolutely.
But you know what I mean? Like, I think that it's interesting that you say that. Like, I don't want to be Mike either, because I think I said in James Serby's podcast, like, I don't do all the stuff Pat does. I can do a little bit of it because I would just be a shitty fucking version of the guy I look up to. And I don't even want to do that. But to know that, like, it's like no one actually gets to that point where they understand what the fuck they are, what level they're at, and then how to progress from there. Not necessarily just jumping to this thing, because you're not that. Like, you should feel imposter. You are one.
I always say Pat is part of the reason I quit training people in person, because after spending enough time around him and enough time around the people that were following him, I was like, I charged a lot of money for in person, like a lot of money.
You're in New York.
And I was like, and I was decent, but I was like, I saw him and I was like, at no point in my career will I ever be able to honestly look someone in the eye and say, you should come to me instead of going to one of these other people. I literally was like, you know what? If someone comes to me for training, and I'm going to say, like, honestly, I've got like 4 people that I think are would be better for you. Now, there's some people that obviously just like me and want to work with me, but I was like, if you have specific goals, like, I'm probably more likely, I'm a bad business person. I'm going to send you to them because I think they're going to be able to facilitate your goals way better. Now, when it comes to nutrition, I don't think there's a lot of people that can do as good a job as I can. So I'm totally comfortable in taking those on. And that's when I really translated everything over, because I was like, and that's a great, I think, realization for people to have. Like, I'm never going to be that good at that thing. So why would I not send other people there?
And maybe you can comment on that, Sam, because I know, again, we like shameless plugs, but I know you're kind of pushing to like the online space with the get more unfit. And correct me if I'm wrong, but stuff. But you also work with Mike T. Nelson, who is definitely way smarter than all of us combined times 10. And you're still jumping that space, but you're doing it at your level of your experience, and you've created something that is you, and it's not shitty Mike.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm using that as example, but you're not shitty, but it's just like you would be a very shitty Mike if you tried to be.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Right. Like at a place of employment, I had someone press down on me and tell me my ego is really big. And I understand that my confidence is very established. I'm very eager. I'm very ambitious. I would say that ego is also someone who's unaware of what they don't do well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, Mike Fitch gave me a really great compliment. He's like, and I told him about this because I was really pissed off about it. He's like, honestly, I don't know if anybody who's as good at knowing where they are good and not good as you. And I was like, yeah, I'm pretty clear of like, this is where my space is. After that, why not me? Right. And so, I jumped on this journey while I've taken multiple courses and coached, everything from pro athletes to teenagers. I understand the value of a coach, and I love getting coached. And I just got so much different kind of coaching in the seminar space when I was on it, getting to tour around and do that kind of coaching. But I found too, like, especially during the stay-at-home mandate stuff, I was like, man, I'm like not getting that itch, right? Like the itch to learn. And so I always said too, I was like, I was okay with like my body composition. Adam Fighton, I just talked about this. He goes, bro, I was so happy. Like you told me that you were just happy with the way your body is. And he's like, I just remembered that. And I was like, yeah, for me, cause I grew up, once again, I said, I grew up really small and undersized. And then by the time I got into powerlifting, Olympic lifting, I had gotten up to like 200 pounds. Right. Well, in college, I also got up to 230 because I was really good at drinking beer and playing beer pong. Right. Like and yeah. Oh yeah. And I did 4 years of college, 4 years of crew.
4 years of
rowing.
college.
4 years of college.
I feel like it's your job, like drink a beer.
Totally. And I was like, because I was super social. I did sports marketing internships. I did all these things. And I did college the way I think I had a great time. And so, but like my last semester of senior year, I didn't work out. I drank beer every day. I got drunk, right? For a semester. And it was like, whatever. Like I was fine with it because also as a kid who's made fun of and picked on for being small all the time, when you finally stop getting that, it's like, oh, that's nice. I don't give a shit. And then when I started lifting, I just got strong, because I was built like a South Park character. So I could, mechanical stress and linear periodization, back squats, like I'm really good at this, right? Like, I remember when we started getting into West Side stuff when we did, had a spider bar for the first time, and my box squat high bar and my spider bar were the same. Cause it's like, yeah, cause your torso's this long, right? Like there's nowhere for anything to go. And I was like, oh shit, man, if I'm good at this for a reason, I don't care. Right. So, but it was also nice to be in something where when you're made fun of for being, weak or small or whatever, to where like, oh, I wasn't weak either. I definitely apply to the, there's a little Chinese girl snatching my back squat out there, right? Like I wasn't that strong, but like I'm in the 1,200 pound club, right? I squat 4, I bench or deadlift 5. I almost hit 3 on a bench. And it's like, okay, I hit respectable numbers in the strength world, right? But I also realized going to these competitions, I was like, ooh, yeah, at the 198 weight class, I got to get really strong.
Yeah.
Like you're really strong. Oh my gosh. Like my squat could hang almost just because a lot of people weren't good at squatting. Their deadlift carried them and their bench carried them. So like that would be like, oh, I might be okay. And I, Olympic style squatted, I high barred, no belt, lifting shoes, narrow stance, right? Because I didn't like powerlift. I didn't like that wide exterior, external rotation squat and, super hip dominant. Didn't feel good.
I love your evaluation of it though. You're the reason why I like you. And like, you're the first person that said I had a 1,200 pound total that I don't fucking hate, because everyone else who has a 1,200 pound total thinks they're going fucking to the top. And you're just like, so that goes back to like knowing what you're good at and what you're not. And not that you're not even good at that. You're just like, it's a pretty easy realization to see Buddy now on Instagram. Like that dude is the same weight as me and has a 500 pound total more than me. Like that's a long ways. Most people would look at that and be like, yeah, next year.
Yeah.
I was at the Emerald Cup in Seattle, and it was and I just did the stage work, helped my buddy do the stage work. And there's a kid in Kansas City, you should find him. Vashon Perryman is his name. 160 pound kid. and shredded, like could walk onto a bodybuilding stage. Had just won a bodybuilding show, opened at like a 600-pound squat, opened his deadlift at like 7, opened his bench at 5. I'm like, you're 160 pounds? My buddy who was a 240 guy was like, yeah, those are my numbers. And we're like, huh, yeah, okay. And it's at that where you start seeing the next level strength. But amongst the everyday human, like if I was training someone in the back, I remember there was a day some dude got the squat pinned on the bars and he had like 3 plates in the side and he's like bitching it because he wanted to try again. And so I just went under it and bottom, front racked it and stood up with it. And he was like, oh, I was like, I mean, I can circus trick to daily humans.
That's swinging your dick at the 24-hour fitness.
Totally. Totally. He was just like, and I was like, oh, it's not that big of a deal,
Sam.
Right?
I'll trade you.
But once again, that's an easy lift for me. Overhead pressing, squatting, it was built for it. And so going through and like wanting to get better, I think that those lifts taught me what it was going to take, and then to watch people excel at that world, to watch that, it wasn't like watching all the powerlifting on YouTube. I wasn't a YouTuber that just digested everything, but I appreciated as I got exposed to more people about what quality was. And I also wanted people to have a standard. If you're going to tell me you squat something, like there's going to be a standard, right? The crease of your hip has to go below the crest of your knee. And if you don't do that, then don't tell me you squat this, right? I'm not saying you can't put that much weight on your back. Just saying what a powerlifting, a USAPL would qualify as this. And that's my measurement of success, right? From this is what I can show off. Now, as a coach later, I now realize, like, I know that mindset took me in a direction that it was like absolute strength was the lens of perspective that I had. And I remember watching a video of LaMarcus Aldridge, who plays for San Antonio, a 7-foot tall dude, doing a squat to like a Swiss ball. And I remember thinking at the time, I was like, why doesn't this dude squat ass to grass? He would be so much better of a basketball player, right? Because that's the only lens I had. And now I'm like, yeah, that dude's legs are longer than my body. If he got down X amount, that's pretty good with a bar on his back kind of thing, right?
That's a yearly argument, by the way. And it's usually the LeBron squat, but like it's like that argument comes up once a year, goes viral, and it's like all the fucking strength coaches come on and be like, I wouldn't do that.
I remember some CrossFit coach from LA was like, wrote a whole article about how much better of a basketball player LeBron would be if he squatted. And I was like, get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck. Like, your only job as a strength coach to LeBron is to not let him get hurt. Like, there's nothing you can do to make him a better basketball player. There's nothing. Like, and that is the worst bias that we have. Like, yeah, strength is great, but it doesn't surpass skill. Like, you're a basketball player. You're not a squatter.
And all the basketball players are weak. Like, they're like, yeah, but Michael Jordan started lifting weights and he won another 3. I'm like, he also won 3 before that. Like,
how many weights he won without Scottie Pippen?
It wasn't the weights. I'm sorry. I'll fucking say that straight up.
I hate that book. Right? Like, I like the motivational messaging of whatever, relentless, whatnot, but like some of the things you say you do from a training standpoint, I'm like, bro, it's like David Goggins' book. Like, yeah, cool. God. You ran a billion miles with a broken tibia. Rah, you're cool. I mean, shit, I couldn't have done that. But like, please don't do that. Please don't go try to do that as a human.
That's why
right?
Dave, that's why he's he must make a lot of money right now, but like he's a different animal. Like,
but also is then when you start making money from that drives you to do more stupid shit because you're getting social recognition, you're getting monetary compensation. I mean, it's like Jackass. Do you really think that those guys want to fucking shoot firecrackers up their buttholes? No. But when you can make $10 million from doing it,
just one more movie. Easier. Just one more movie. We just gotta get
I blew a lot of money on Coke this year. We're gonna need to do one more movie.
Totally. And I mean, that mindset is so, I've had now the honor to go from being that 24-hour fitness personal trainer to working with a Cy Young award-winning World Series champion. I've worked with Tyron Woodley. I've worked with Tim Kennedy, right? Like, and it's been like, to watch the level of capability that person has is amazing, right? And what they dedicate their bodies to be able to do, right? Jake, while he's a pitcher, is a freak athlete, right? Like, we played tennis last year, and he just was like, I've never really played. He just picked it up, right? And of course he plays baseball, but like running around the court, serving, I'm like, oh, right? Like, just ground baseline shots, like drive. I'm like, oh, you could do this too. You're one of those guys that like, I could have done that. I just chose this, right? Yeah. And to watch how special he is at what he does. And for me, like, I wasn't with him before he won his awards, right? In fact, he's had a couple injuries since we've trained together, right? Not necessarily because of what we do, but this is how the season's gone, right?
Mhm.
And for him, it's just been like, the guy's already known for his fitness. He was on ESPN, the magazine Body Issue, right? Because he's 6'4", 240 and does Pilates, right? For me, as I work with him, it became, how do I install training into what works with his lifestyle, right? He clearly doesn't have a problem working out. He likes to do it. Now just does it have some direction, right? And like, I don't try to be the Eric Cressy where I'm doing all the things, because that's not what he's signing up for with me either, right? He likes that I learn from that and that I go do the things, but he also just appreciates that, like, okay, well, he goes out and gets this knowledge and then it gets dosed to me in this way. And we have a great relationship around it, right? But I don't try to be, once again, who I'm not. And if it did come to that, I'd send him to him.
Where do you think this fits in? Because I think like a good, like, again, I like to like make fun of stuff and then give, hopefully the people that were making fun of them, maybe they'll listen like, hey, this is what I should do, because these dudes are going to make fun of me regardless. Now I feel like an imposter. You don't have to feel like an imposter, even though you're a little bit of one. But how do I guess, and we'll use fitness trainers because we're kind of all in that fitness space.
Mm-hmm.
How do they take that ideology of like knowing what you're good at, knowing what you suck at, and trying not to be that person who ends up copying the stuff that they're not going to be good at? Like, how do you get to that spot? Because I know you've given a lot of advice, even with True Coach and On It, and like that's kind of been your space. Like, okay, how did this guy do it? But I don't think there's anything world changing. So where do I guess people start, considering that they're going to be in this space and they want to be in this space without being shitty at being in this space? If that makes sense.
I think we have to get really good at learning who we talk to. And, you know, I would say this to coaches at 24, even when I was there, because they would have a hard time getting clients. And I was like, oh, I'm full. And at True Coach, you notice that all these kids don't know how to get clients, and the kids who came to the On It service didn't know how to get clients. And that's the biggest trouble in this industry. In order to get enough reps to be a great coach, you have to sell enough sessions to get enough reps.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, so many people are bad at the sales part. And then online came around, people thought that online was my ticket to not having to sell in person. And it's like, well, now you have to do it differently. And now it's just easy to just copy what you're seeing. And I honestly think that the real ticket, and I wish more people did this, was felt really confident in who they reach. And I say that there are 8 billion people in this world. Would you two be happy selling 1 million people something for $1? Pretty pumped, right? So, like, look at the Live Strong bracelets kind of thing, right? You're like, holy shit, how much money that makes, right? Okay, so let's take that and say, okay, well, let's look at something like the shake weight. Sure, we can make fun of the shake weight as it's a jerk off fitness whatever toy. Yeah, that laughs his ass off every time someone is like, oh, you made a fucking super toy? He's like, yeah, but I made $1 billion, right?
Yeah.
I know you guys are Canadian, so Nickelback makes fun of everybody who's like, yeah, you don't like our music, but you still pay us.
Yeah.
I mean,
right?
you did work for a company that was funded by a jerk off flashlight, right?
Right. Sure. Yeah. Founded by, right? Created that. And it was this, to be able to step into that, like, I definitely recognized that I was getting a platform from On It to be in the front of the room, that, okay, I'm going to make sure that I'm putting us in front of the right people to get respect, because On It wasn't well liked in the beginning. I would say that before I got there, what you saw was not, the strength in coaching world did not see it as a valuable thing. Not only do you see these supplements that may or may not, whatever, but then you're seeing this equipment that's like clubs and maces, and like, this, why? And I came into that. When I got to On It, I wasn't exposed. I was a hard style kettlebell swinger, but I wasn't into like maces and clubs. And so I came in, I was like, why would I use this offset lever object? I can just go get stronger, and that's going to solve my problem, right? And then it was honestly John Wolf, who is built like me. I was in the gym squatting, because I was the very first member of the On It gym. And I only walked through the doors of On It because I was a Joe DeFranco fan, and Joe had announced he was merging his gym with On It at the time. Mm-hmm. Right. So I was first member, and I was in there squatting sets of 5, 365 sets of 5. And Wolf comes out, no warm up. He's like, oh man, what are you doing today? It's like, oh, some squats. He's like, I haven't squatted in years. Let me try that. Pulled himself onto the bar, hits it to like an Astagrass double, and then like slaps me on the butt and walks away. And I was like, wait, what?
That's payback for your front racking that dude's 350.
For sure. And I was just like, wait. And then Noah, who used to run Black Swan Yoga, I watched him do like a wheel down the turf and then to a barbell and do a 405 deadlift for like sets of 10. I was like, wait, how did you do that? And then go, you know what I mean? Like that, my world is kind of getting blown away. And, you know, so then like I wasn't really even planning on working there. It obviously ended up happening, but to come in and like, you know, I was trying to get into baseball sales, like territory sales. And when they wanted me to move to different cities in Texas, I was like, I don't know if I want that. I just got to Austin. So I went to On It, was like, hey, what would it look like if I came to work here? And my first thing I pitched them was like, let me go travel the world and promote clubs and maces and talk about On It. And they're like, no. I was like, oh, it's funny. I got what I wanted. So then it turned into like John and I were talking, and like the certs had just started up from On It. They were just kind of getting ready to roll fitness out as its own thing. I was like, hey, I was a personal trainer. I was actually really good at it from this, and I can help you organize the thing. And so I was just operations. I helped organize all the certs, send out certificates, check people into the seminars. And I just stood in the back. I was not in a position to coach people on it. I wasn't there to be a forward face for my first year. I just kind of stood there. And because I didn't make any money really, I took a huge pay cut coming in, was that I just went to every seminar that came through, because like, what else do I have to do? Might as well go to free fitness workshops if I'm here. And inevitably ours. So I ended up taking ours, you know, the On It one to 18 times before I even helped assist teach something. And like you said, you learn information, but then it was like, you know, getting to start seeing what the landscape of fitness is. Here's the people I value that are valued for what they do, whether it's for athletes or what they built. How do we align ourselves with those people? Because who didn't want this access that On It and Joe Rogan were getting, right? So then it turned into it by chance getting an opportunity to go to like an NSCA conference. And then Sayla, my partner who was on the wholesale team, was like, yeah, he's really good at standing in the middle of the room and getting a lot of attention, right? And then talking shop. And then to be able to start putting us in front of strength coaches and then bringing people in like Dr. John Russin to teach his seminar with Christian Thibodeau, and Mark Bell to come in, and Mark Chang to come in, and FRC and Animal Flow, all these courses, right? And for me, I'm looking at it from cross-pollination, because I'm looking at it from, well, bringing targeted audience of personal trainers and coaches into an environment that delivers this kind of messaging is going to be beneficial to their future, right? So I looked at this as just purely a learning ground for me. And I think that's the thing that most coaches should take away from that, is that it's never about, I think the inevitable journey is to like, I believe this is how you should squat, or this is the way nutrition should work, or this is the way I think the metabolism, blah, 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 blah works. And while that's great to inevitably have that character later in your career, the people that you see doing it now have been in it for 20 years, right? Like, you want to be Eric Cressy? Great. Go write a blog about the elbow, the shoulder, upper extremities, arm care, baseball players for 20 years every week without missing a beat. Now coach the world's elite. Now start 4 facilities that host the world's elite. Now, you know, now it's like, that's the marker. If you want to be the guy, that's fine. There's going to be someone that eclipses that someday, right? But like, that's my measurement of success. So until then, he puts out all this free information. He puts out all this content. He provides all these resources. How can I learn from him and earn that trust, right? And to have, you know, him call me and like, hey, this team wants to talk to you about this player. Would you be open to that kind of thing? Was like, holy shit, dude, really? He's like, how have you not earned that from me? And I was like, that was very honoring, right? To know that like I can be a resource in his network, because it's never been about like, look what I'm doing for baseball players. I've got this formula to make them throw 90 miles an hour. It's like, no, I'm just trying to do what he says is the best and learn from it.
See, that's a really good observation, though. And again, this is not even take cracks at it, but I think that, not that everyone goes about it the wrong way, but your networking and kind of like how I've done things has been really helpful for getting there, as opposed to just seeing, we'll use John Rusin, do his videos and whatever, create his program, I do this and that, and they just try to do that, and they're like, that should be how it worked. And like you said, everyone who's doing it successfully isn't because they did the infographic or this. It's usually the 10 years before that, and they were already making money before that. A lot of the people I see that are successful, it wasn't about money, because it was about money, but they were already making money. They didn't have to resort to the raw, I think a squat should be like this. And so everyone just starts there thinking that equals success, and it's just,
well, I think people vastly undersell the importance of the network. I mean,
the network and the knowledge.
This moment right here. I mean, like, I can trace everything in my fitness. It started when I was in rehab and got a body weight workout book, And so then I was like, oh, cool. I'm gonna do some different ones. And I got a Zach Evanesh book. It came with a free copy of Jason Ferrugia's Renegade Diet. So then I joined Jay. I was asking Jay a question online, and he said, join my group. Joined his group. He introduced me to Chase Carnes, who programmed me for Strongman. Then Jay introduced me to Sean Heisen, who I became really good friends with, who you worked with On It. And therefore I started following you on social media, and we had little conversations. And then we just had a conversation the other day because you posted something, and I was like, oh, here's what I kind of agree with, and here's what I disagree with. And we had like an actual meaningful conversation rather than a fuck you, that's wrong. And then, okay, oh, you know what? Hey, I know you've been on Dean's podcast, be on the podcast with me and Dean together. But like those kind of relationships, I think, are so fucking important, and people think they're all trying to have transactional relationships rather than things that they can grow from.
Or copying the inevitable. Like, you didn't go look at Jay Ferrugio and then be like, yeah, I'm starting a podcast. That's how I get big. It's like,
he didn't have a podcast then, but you know what he was doing, and it's interesting because Sam referenced basically all the guys that had the biggest influence on me starting out, and Dean, I think you too, because you're into DeFranco as well. Kind of where it all started. So what did they make money on? They all made all their money doing affiliate marketing.
Yeah.
And that's dead. Like, there's almost no way to make money doing that anymore. But everyone was following that formula then and just killed it because people stopped trusting email.
It's wild to watch that, right? To see the fruition of it now, because
that's not that long ago.
We're kind of like middle-aged. Like all of us are kind of in the middle age of fitness right now. We've been in it more than a decade. We've been in it doing it. But like the people that we look up to are still very much in it, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what I made fun of. When I was making fun of John, but like I messaged John right after, but like, listen, someone might like say we're calling you out, but I was like straight up was like the reason why John and you talked about it, but a lot of the On It people, but Joe DeFranco and all these people essentially changed the fitness industry because they started talking about performance, and then people started doing performance without the intensity, and they got smaller. But they're like, yeah, this is what these guys do, but they changed it by being good at the thing that they were good at, without the intention of being like, yeah, everyone's got to stop being meatheads. They were just saying you should probably.
Because they were all meatheads.
Yeah.
And so, Jay and fucking DeFranco are giant.
And that's
meatheads.
what I said. It came off like, oh, they don't work. And I was like, John, like, and he's like, yeah, dude, like we crush it. Like I deadlifted 600 pounds. Like, I'm like, I know. Like, and I'm like, that's what's gotten lost still. It's everyone kind of copied you guys, and then they just took the aspects that were easy and
let's be honest,
all that, and then took it.
After you said that, you said, well, I deadlifted over 700 pounds. So
yeah.
you always point that out.
Yeah, well, because
I think
that's important, because if you don't say that, you just write about performance and stuff, people will be like, oh, I should do a fucking foam roller because John Rusin said it. Well, John's doing stupid shit in the gym. It's just like I follow I was following Pat Davidson. Then when I met him in person, he was doing dumb shit in the gym, and I'm like, okay, you're like me. But there was no point where Pat was like, yeah, like I like to deadlift this and do this stupid stuff. If anything, I would just think he's a science nerd if I just looked at a few things. So I do think that is helpful to like let people know, hey, I still like try hard. Because I do think that gets lost even with these memes and these infographics. It's like they're so simple, and I look at a lot of people mimicking them, and they forgot a key element of you should probably get like jacked or like know people or like do this for real, because that's helpful. Because the people who are doing it successful, I trust them because I know where they've been or they have a body of work, which then gives them credit for their post. That makes a big difference to me, especially because they all end up talking to other fitness trainers. A lot of this stuff doesn't end up to the end user. Like, no one's reading these fucking like Twitter post things that we're posting, and it's like end users being, oh, take my money. It's usually other fitness trainers saying, oh, good job, good post. I'm going to make a post like that too, and hopefully it works. It's like, what? Sorry, that's my rant for the day.
No,
you know what I mean? Like that's
been interesting. Like, because now, like, as we talk, I know we kind of went in a weird direction with it, but like, because I ramble, but now as I'm like, I'm not at True Coach anymore, and I launched an online product because I do want to have a passive online solution that allows me not to trade $1 for the hour, and I know how to play the game, right? And like, I have a message that like I've been doing the tagging the be less fat thing for a long time, so people have grown to understand it, right? Because I haven't been trying to, and it's been interesting. I haven't even been trying to sell sessions, right? I don't train anybody in person anymore, except for Jake and a few athletes. And so like I put up a post on Facebook and Insta, and I had a bunch of people respond. I was like, oh yeah, shit, I forgot. Like that's really nice to hear that people want to train with me again still, right? Because I just have only been working with coaches for so long. But
Onnit and True Coach, though, like that's attached to you, regardless of whether like Onnit and True Coach is a good resume builder for other people, and they don't realize like, hey, maybe that fucking helped.
Right. And it was like, oh, and in order to get there, it's like, oh, I was a trainer first. Then I ate a bunch of dog shit at this part of my iteration at True Coach. And then I earned an opportunity. Now I earned a bunch of opportunities. Now I earned the next opportunity. Ooh, that wasn't as cool as I thought it was going to be, but like it taught me some shit. And to look at like, okay, now I'm getting ready to enter the online space for myself and taking some remote clients and doing online products. I'm like, wow. And I look at the social media and how people are trying to do it and the messaging, and it's like, oh my gosh, like, hey, you're missing the boat so much. And I mentioned earlier, getting really good at who you're talking to. There's 8 billion people in the world. I don't need to talk to all the people who are trying to be the most shredded person in the world, right? Like, could I help someone? Sure, maybe. Like, I'm probably not the best coach for you, but I just want to help people who are like my age, that's who I used to talking to, that are like, yeah, I got a kid now. I just want to like get fit at home. And, you know, for a lot of messaging, if you're the skinny dude, it's hard to sell a message around like you don't have to lift heavy weights, you don't have to go hardcore in the gym.
They don't do
right?
that,
Because it's like, yeah, of course you're selling that message because you probably lift like a bitch, right?
Yeah.
And then for me, it's like, oh, this dude lifts heavy weights. He trains athletes. He coaches, and he's telling me to like go on a walk. Whoa, holy shit, that's different, right? And so it's to watch how people market the messaging, and I'm like, I've had this top level view for so long. I'm like, oh my gosh. All you, and I get it. I get the education, but you can tell where people are at in their journey. Cause like, oh, you still only think that exercise selection is a thing, right? Like that's what you're caught up on. Oh yeah. That's why it's so hard for like people who are maybe more established in their career to want to do content. Cause you're like, it's so much more than what you're going to learn from an Instagram post that like,
right.
What?
Yeah.
And that's like how Jeb and I started talking. Like I shared a thing from Squat University about the eccentric control of a deadlift. And I made a comment about touch and go deadlifts because I hate people just jerking the bar up and down like a seizure. And he mentioned like, oh, that's really applicable to RDLs. And I said, yeah, 100% agree. And how we got into this conversation was I was like, so many kids couldn't even have seen that, right? They can only look into the exercise selection and what's the closest thing. And it's like, it's so hard to want to look at how I think we as coaches who are experienced do have an obligation to help the younger generations as much as we might hate how they do
things. That's what this is sort of.
If we don't
weirdly self-satisfying, but it's also like, hey, this, like, we're going to make fun of stuff for your benefit, hopefully. Yes. And we might be biased, but like, at least we're trying to do our part.
You're not allowed to bitch unless you're trying to do something to help. Right. And so that's, this is what this is to help share perspective, right? Because perspective only comes at a cost of time, energy, money, and pain.
And doing
so now
this
we have these. Yeah. How do we help you guys see the things that we didn't do well, or the things that we didn't know? Because also, here's the thing that most people don't realize about fitness is it's a really young industry, right? It's not like really it's been around years. It's not like being a cobblestone person that makes shoes, right? That's been around forever, a long, long time, right? Like, first strength coach in like a collegiate setting was what, in the 20s, right?
The first personal trainer, I think, is Tony Little. Isn't he credited as being like the first real personal trainer?
Probably.
And that's like the 80s.
Yeah. And, we look at like the messaging we've seen, like, yeah, we have to remember the messaging. We saw the low fat messaging. That was our childhood, right? Yeah. Then we watched the Atkins and Slim Fast, and we watched the calorie message. And then like right when I got into it, you're starting to see the food quality message pop in. And like I got on board with that. That makes sense, right? Like we have all these things that are mechanically made. Like you're right. Like I grew up on a farm. Like zucchini from the garden, when I cut it off, it is exponentially better than the one from wherever, right? Like I don't doubt that the quality of food is better because I feel it. And like I remember reading Gary Taub's Why We Get Fat, and I was like, okay, that makes sense, right? Because remember, I came into this from a weekend cert kind of kid. I didn't come into it from deep anatomy, physiology backgrounds. I was like, inherently, that makes sense because the fitness industry markets itself off selling virtue, right? I would love to think I'm the type of person that only eats grass-fed eggs and my own slaughtered bacon, and I made my own sourdough to make my bread. Like, I would love to be that person. I would love to like say I did that with my time. I don't, I won't, I would love to say like, sure, I don't eat bread. I only eat vegetables and fruit. Like, sure, from a Like that would be a cool thing to say you did. Like, oh wow, what really? Right? Like that seems right. Like it seems logical, right, to our idea. But then it's like, oh, you're not going to do that, right? And so now we're finally getting into this more. Oh, okay. There's a difference between calories in, calories out. They're in that. They're it's not the guy who did the Twinkie thing, right? Like what kind of food you put in you does matter, right? Like you do need nutrients for your body, but it's not just about that you have to go paleo or this or that, right? We see the skewing of messaging. And that was 2008, 2010, we watched paleo, right? So now, I mean, look at the protein bar market. Remember the first Power Bar from Gatorade or whatever, whoever made it? It was like a peanut butter, like Laffy Taffy, but like on crack, right? Like that was the first Power Bar or protein bar. Yeah, and then now look where we are.
Well, I just remember.
You're right, and it was actually pretty. It was. I like the chocolate one, but yeah, you're right. That was kind of the first.
Are you guys old enough to have had like Myoplex packet shakes?
Yes, that was my first.
And it was like it was like chunky and thick, and you would just fucking fart awfully, like it
before shaker bottles.
Everything.
Remember before shaker bottles?
Oh yeah, you had to blend it, and it was still like cake batter.
Yeah, we made protein on it, and the first round they made was banana walnut. And I was like, who comes up with these flavors, right? I'm like, oh yeah. And like Sean and I were joking about it because I was like, none of them were the kids that saved up their $20 from lawn mowing to buy the 5-pound bag of GNC chocolate or vanilla protein that you shook up in a crappy water bottle that did not mix, that you just had to cake through just because you knew that protein made you bigger.
I would buy expired stuff off eBay because it was cheaper.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like, it's so bad.
Right? Like we still didn't even know that much about creatine in the early 2000s. Like, I mean, there were studies, but like the general public was like, ooh, creatine, what's that doing?
Yeah, my mom had the steroid talk with
me. But you could also buy a super draw at GNC.
Totally hydroxycut and everything, right? Like there was no regulations, but a friend of mine who's a copywriter, I was telling about this Be Less Unfit program I'm doing, and we were talking about copy, and he reminded me in this great way. We're just like, we're in the fitness industry. We are not in the fat loss industry. Right? Watch TLC's My 600 Pound Life and watch the ads you see and the messaging you see. Even the lowest level NASM certified trainer is going to have a different message than that. Right? And it's like, oh yeah. Okay. Once again, there's 8 billion people in the world. So for me, I knew at 24 Hour Fitness, like, sure, I work with athletes now, but that's not who I like set out to work with, nor was I qualified to work with at the time. But it was like, oh, for whatever reason, I was really good at talking to like type A females, executive females, right? Like, because I had this like blah, blah, blah attitude, like they responded to that, right? They like that, but I didn't work for them. So we could have a different style frequency chat, right? And then I got found out that I was good with kids. So I had a bunch of little kids, and it was like, oh, if that's who my message is good at sounding like, and if like my character, right? Like Russin and Pat Davidson and Dre Spina, they all have a character they play online that makes you like, oh shit, okay. Like you got to itch the itch a little bit. I don't know what this was, but you got to itch the itch a little bit.
Just don't use itching the itch with children.
Yeah, never with children, right? That we all of a sudden get we get people who like the version because they see themselves in us, right? They attach to the style that we do things, right? Like I recognize that while I'd never have been like the leanest guy in the room, like the Be Less Fat thing works. Like people, it's never been about I don't work in fitness or I don't do things. It's like, oh, he travels the world, he in a hotel. Like they get that. And so it's about relating, right?
Well, and it made a big difference for you because I think I messaged you, and you've always been open about it, like, like I don't care, like whatever. But you started working with Mike. I'm like, yeah, like you were on your Peloton or something. I could see your like striations in your shoulders. I'm like, dude, like that's actually pretty sick. But I wouldn't say that about everyone. Like if Jeb lost a few pounds, I would be like, whatever. Because like your caricature you kind of built up, that made a bigger impact. And it, you know what I mean? Like it was interesting because that's a normal goal for normal people. But I saw it more in you because you've talked about the other end of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's like my messaging on social media is very, very different now that I've kind of niched down because my niche is like middle-aged, overweight women who struggle with emotional eating. So me posting a bunch of selfies of, with a pump and like, my tattoos, it doesn't make sense. And it's a turnoff. Like they don't want to see that. They want the educational part. They want my daily emails. They want those things that, and also not selling them. They want to be, they want to learn about how they can make their lives better.
So then like once you have your message, you have like, okay, here, like, and your message comes from your past experiences. Who do you have shit in common with? And I think this is where a lot of people go wrong in this. And I'm still trying to figure out how to productize this message, because I don't know if I don't think it's a product personally, but it is, in that your past experiences is the perspective that you have that allows you to connect with other people. At the root level, we all have lifting as something that ties us all together, that we can always come back to. So if I'm in a sales environment and I'm trying to get you to like me, the first thing I'm trying to do is find something in common with us, right? Let's say we're all sitting down at a pub having a beer, which I would like to do someday. And someone walks through the door and Dean just looks up. He's like, oh, what a D-bag, right? Like, what a stupid looking blah, blah individual. And all of a sudden,
Andrew Coates.
It'd be Andrew Coates. And then all of a sudden he takes off his shirt and he has the pump tank top on. And you're like, wait, did you listen to my wait, holy shit. And now you became BFFs with this person, because why? You have something in common. You just went from like hating this person, right? So what allowed me to be a good networker is I've done a lot of different things, right? I've gone out and experienced a lot of like, oh, like you're really into rowing. I've seen on Instagram, like, oh, I rowed crew for 4 years in college. Like, we can talk about rowing. Oh, you got powerlifting or this or that or sports or like traveling gives you something to talk about. Like, find the common line, and then you have something that opens the door, right? Like, I used to smash getting clients to the bar. I would sit on Friday. If I was done by like 1, I'd go and have a beer at the local sports bar. It was down the street. And I'd sit there, and if we're all sitting once again at the bar and you didn't know me and you wanted to strike up a conversation, what's the guaranteed topic that's going to come up between us? What do you do? Right? Yeah. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a trainer. Oh, you're a trainer? You like, oh, you're drinking a beer? I'm like, yeah, man, like, you can drink beer. And then it's like, how, and then you can tell if someone wants to engage with you. They're like, either they like entirely dismiss you, or it's like, yeah, you know, I would love to work out, but this shoulder, a high school football, bench press, I used to, you know, and you're like, oh man, I totally get, and like they've just now opened the door to talk, right? They just gave you an in that says, I'm interested to know more about you, but they may not be ready to hear the pitch, right? Because they're still buying you. Do you want to do business with someone you don't like? Absolutely not, right? So now it turns into like, oh, we connecting? Oh yeah, oh you a big Phillies fan? Oh, dope, very cool. And then it's also about talking about like, oh yeah, man, what you could be doing is like just move your shoulder a little bit in the mornings. So don't try to go too hard or heavy, right? And just maybe
super valuable. That so the way you're explaining this is like good for in-person stuff. But I think there's a correlation between this and like, we just end up getting the online just because of this. But a lot of the people that like the stupid shit that I post have been clients in person, or they're my friends, or they're my friends list. Yep. It's not, and they end up being other trainers. But I think a lot of people jump to this stuff and think that they're reaching those people. Where that dude with the fucking fucked up shoulder, he's not reading Instagram to see this fucking post about this. But if he's friends with you or likes you or knows you, then he'll read that post and it'll be impactful. Yeah. The other people have just done that on a larger scale, but without that, and that's experience, but that's talking to people and that's getting out there. Your online presence means nothing to me.
Mm-hmm. And then, but I think to extend that further is when you find someone who's online and they're constantly pitching. Yeah. It's a turn off as well, because you haven't, like you said, established that relationship. And I think that's where, Mark Fisher and I had this big conversation about this, and actually Michael Keeler, his business partner, two of my favorite human beings alive. But we talked, it's like so much of their early success in launching their coaching program outside of Mark Fisher Fitness was that they spent about a year to 18 months just creating content to give away
because they were making money.
Yeah, well, and for them, it's like they always say, like, be that person to where when you finally sell something, people just buy it because, and I've gone to tons of their seminars, not necessarily because of any other reason than I just like them. And it's a good opportunity to go hang out for 2 days. Yes. And not that, there's some stuff that had literally zero to do with my business, but I'm like, I love these guys and I know that they're going to draw a great crowd of people to meet. I'm going to go spend a weekend there.
But that strategy is rooted in, and that's where it's like, I think there's like a huge disconnect is like people jump to like the online and then constantly selling and stuff. Cause like, online selling, infographics, whatever. I'm just using infographics, but the people who are successful, like Andrew's a good example because his Twitter thing is blowing up, and Andrew's a really good writer and he's very good at being pretentious asshole trainer. Great. Everyone loves it. But Andrew does like 40 to 50 sessions some weeks. Andrew's making 6 figures as a trainer. He can do that on the side, and it doesn't matter if he makes money. Andrew hasn't sold online. Andrew's tried to sell online training like once, and he got like 10 clients or something stupid. Because he doesn't sell, because he doesn't need to, because he has a fucking job. Like, focus on that first, and then that should be ancillary to the main thing. And everyone thinks that is the main thing. It's like, no.
Yes.
Like, training, like whatever making your money is the main thing. Like, you have the option to be better at this thing longer because you're not constantly fucking whatever Gary V's, but you're not throwing left hooks the whole fucking time. Yeah. You can jab because you have money elsewhere. Like, it's not going to be your bread and butter, which I think gets lost. I think, maybe I'm wrong, but I see a lot of emphasis on that portion of it, like the marketing, without actually having some source of income prior to that. And I think that's why a lot of people ditch the online thing right away, because it doesn't work, because they didn't have a backup plan.
100%. And, we watched this when COVID happened. People were looking to jump into online training, and it just switched over. Yeah. And it was like, hold on, let's just identify first. Are you doing this to keep things afloat for your current member base, or are we doing something that's going to be an existing business model?
Absolutely.
Because that's going to tell us exactly how much time we're going to put into this. And for the gyms that had great member bases, where like everybody was like, no, please, I will keep paying you if I can, because I love coming here. It's my third place, my fourth place. Yeah. If I don't get my Olympic lifting, my strength training, my kettlebells in, I'm going to go nuts. And so you watch these gyms be able to like, okay. And then it turns into like, oh, well, now I have time to shoot content, and now I can create a digital offering, right? Maybe have an intro to kettlebells, whatever kind of program. And so many of these young kids they hadn't had that experience, right? Like, and then when you get into online training, let's say you sign a couple people up, right? Like if we sign both of you guys up right now and I've never trained someone, I don't have videos. I don't have any sort of frequently asked question, how to respond to things. And it all, because I don't have any experience, it's going to take me 5 hours to program a workout for you, because I don't know anything about workouts. Ideally, right? That person's going to, whatever, they're just throwing shit on the wall and seeing what sticks. And like the coaches who want to care, like they get in that imposter syndrome of, oh, should I do back squats or front squats, or how do I know which one? How low should I teach them? And like, then they just stop doing everything because, right?
That
and then they don't
really happen. Like, because you say stop doing everything, but Jeb and I know quite a few people who've almost burnt out by taking on all these extra products, projects, or offerings because they had time during COVID. But like you said, the people who stayed had an established base or income prior, and then they kind of used it to stay afloat. Everyone else who tried to jump on board to do basically shitty versions of all this other stuff, all the people that crushed them were like the Luca Hosevars or like the Rusins or anyone who has a gym, and they just put out good content because they had the money, they could do it. They are going to crush you every time. Peloton crushed everyone during this. They already were doing fucking Zoom workouts. Basically, it's just via their app. And so,
well, actually, Dean and I were just messaging because someone had posted about the tonal, and everyone was kind of like, oh, that doesn't sound very good. And I don't know anything about it. I got the Instagram ad the other day, so I kind of clicked through and looked at it, and I was like, I got to tell you, for my Gen Pop clients that don't like to work out, that don't want to do things, and they ask me about this, fucking done deal. It's done deal.
It's a video.
You got a resistance
they just want video.
Exercise, and it's a video. It's a thing right there, and there's actually like some type of resistance profile there. Like, to me, this is gold for my clients, like my fat loss clients, that now I can say you're going to have a resistance component. So I think you're right. I think these people who are just jumping in, like, know your base and have a base and work with them. Otherwise, you're fighting, like Dean said, you're fighting the giants.
I don't think online training is going to be the solution for a lot of those people. Even, like, I think Goodman posted about Zoom workouts as a solution. Honestly, I don't think online training is a solution for most of those fucking people either, because Tone will come out and all the Gen Pop, the people with the actual money, like no one likes online fucking training programs except for serious people. Like I'm very confident saying that most people aren't looking, I'm going to pay an online trainer. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I know there's enough market to keep a bunch of people afloat, but that's why there's so many people drop out of online training, because they suck at it, because honestly it's not like really that attractive. Second the gyms open back up, everyone flooded again. Andrew's fucking full of clients to the max. Online training is not the key right now.
It was so funny watching everybody rush to put out crap too, because I was like, y'all acting like people are going to come out of this with good relationships with food and fitness. Like, do you think people are going to get better relationships with their health during this time?
No, because they're being told that they have to do this. You got to do
Yes.
body weight programs and stuff. Like, they weren't doing it beforehand. What's the fucking difference? Like,
Well, what about the mechanical stress people, the people who are all about barbells, who are like, whoa, now do body weight hip thrusts. Like, I know I bashed it for 5 years, but like that's, you know, and you're like, bro, like, it's fine. You pigeon, like, it's okay to niche down, right? And you better hope they liked you, right? And they're willing to trust you in that journey.
I
mean,
hope they like you.
I got to be honest, because I have a private studio here in New York, and so when everything closed down, I could still go work out in my gym, and I have a little apartment gym downstairs that's got some stuff. If I hadn't had those things, maybe eventually I would have gone and done some pull-ups at the park, but I don't think I would have done anything. Like, that's not me. Like, I'm not going to do a bunch of body weight shit. When I go on vacation, I don't do extra. Like, I'll work out if there's a hotel gym, but like, I'm not. And maybe that says something about me. But I think a lot of people that are like me, that like to lift, that need that stimulus, are going to be like, "What's the fucking point?"
Body weight
You know?
training is never going to be fucking popular to the masses. Never. Especially now
No,
that
but
everyone's
the
like
people that it is popular to, like, I have some friends who are like movement guys, and they have this, and they're in the right place. Like, they're in Boulder, Colorado. My one buddy, and his gym crushes it. So, do you know APECO Movement? It's Boulder Movement Company. My friend Matt Bernstein has it. It's in Boulder, but they do that Edo Portal shit and crush, because it's like a bunch of hippies there that have a lot of money, and you know, that's like that's what they want to do.
Literally
Well, once
talking
again,
like white privilege, like economic status here generally, like that might be okay. It's like most people aren't there.
The messaging, I think, started to change, that it is more, because I think the market was ready for something that wasn't yoga.
Yeah.
That in the body weight delivery, right? Something that was a little bit more masculine, and like Animal Flow is killing it. Like, their on-demand channels killing it. And like, I use it to warm up every day. I think it's a great thing for me to move my body. I love watching how my body's changed in the way it moves. And honestly, obviously having, you know, if we wanted to argue strength, it's like, well, if I can now improve or keep my strength level without having to overload my system all the time, then that's a beneficial thing, right? Because recovery stays up. And if I got that because, well, my hips are, like, I have better internal rotation, so I'm in a better position at the bottom of my squat, there's less effort. Okay. Right? Like, then I'm looking at it from like, okay, that's a win. And for me, I start looking at all these solutions because, once again, the messaging is reps and sets and this scheme. And you see all these new studios popping up, like, oh my God, another treadmill and punch shit, or treadmill and lift shit, or bike and whatever mixture of crap. And it really just like it's all about just the intensity. But I think people are now becoming more educated around that there's a lot of stuff out there. Mm-hmm. And the idea of body weight is cool, right? It's like, oh, I should be able to do calisthenics, right? Even if I can't do ring dips and levers and planches and shit like that. It, like, I remember watching, it's like, wow, I can move all this external load on my back, but I can't do that? Huh. All right. Right. And like, that was an interesting thing for me. And then it turned into, what would that open up in other areas of my training?
The thing is, now even like I've been trying to do L-sits, and I can finally do one for like 30 seconds. Took like almost 3 months, and I'm like, yeah, I'm fucking strong. Jep, I can deadlift 745 pounds. This should be easy. No, can't even get one leg off the ground. Like, I can get, anyways. Like, I think like it's actually, talking about body weight, it is actually beneficial. It's just really hard, and people aren't going to do it now. Like, that's the actually crazy thing, is like the barrier to entry is, yeah, it's easy, no commit, but it's fucking hard and it's boring.
Well, the funny thing is that's how I got into training, though.
Yeah, and it's probably the best.
It was convict conditioning. That's the one it was. And it was literally just doing like, it was a Dragon Door product, and it was like doing like ring, like you would progress to like ring pull-ups or something, and like pistols, and I fucking loved it. But then I actually started getting heavier, and I was like, this fucking sucks. Like, give me a barbell.
But like that's the whole idea of like, evolutionarily, that might actually be better than what we're doing. The little thing is stupid.
Yeah. Freaking who was it? Patrick Ward made a really cool post during COVID around. He's like, oh, I stopped lifting as much, and I've been running a lot during COVID. And he's like, my sleep got better because my neck isn't as thick. And you're like, oh yeah. That makes sense. Like, a bunch
of you know, who's the guys we talked to? We got Jordan Shallow on, and he had the greatest quote ever. He's like, listen, if you haven't had sleep apnea while you're awake, you're not a real lifter.
But it's true. And that's where it's kind of like we make fun of all this stuff, but it's like even I think actually working with pretty much middle-aged women on nutrition stuff has really opened my eyes to the value, and just even doing my research project for Costa Rica and all this stuff is like exercise is good. That's what they've come to the conclusion of. Like, what the fuck are they gonna do? And like, mom's not gonna be doing, honestly, there's no fucking mom that's gonna be doing a body weight fucking at-home workout program made by Eric Cressy. I'm sorry, not gonna happen. They're gonna drive on the Peloton every day of the week, or this whole thing. It's like, that's okay. I'm actually cool with that. Where before I'd have been like, yeah, you just need a lift. But that experience of having that has made everything, it's like, it doesn't matter anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that's interesting that you connect with and what you are actually going to do, which a lot of times, if they like you, they're probably going to do it. And that's why online training is really shitty, because no one's actually getting people to like them. They're just thinking like, I'm just going to put out good content.
Write this program.
Like, you fucking suck. And no one likes you. Like, that's a problem.
And like the art of writing a program, like, I know we all give a shit about if we're going to write and build you something, like, I'm going to fucking do it, right? Like, I'm going to create. And so the fact that you have people out there just throwing shit in the wall and seeing what sticks, it's like, yeah, it's not about exercise selection, but it is about exercise selection in a way that, like, I'm choosing how this is going to best fit you, because I have all this other experience watching people deadlift that I think if we do a cycle of 6 weeks of pin pulls, all of a sudden you're going to go from 225 to 245. That's why I am doing that. But this person just saying, oh, go do 21-15 of 9 of deadlifts, wall balls, this, like, sure, you're metabolically working, making someone move a bunch, but like, if as coaches, if our job is to develop confidence, autonomy, so they can be self-reliant, then sure, those things by themselves are fine. But why are you doing them? And it has nothing to do with that you did deadlifts and wall balls together. Like, would I do that? No. But like, it's not about that combo. It's like, but did you learn what the value of those things are, right? And I think that we have to get to a point. Like, I would love to see PN in like middle schools and elementary schools, a version of education in that level. But like, we don't learn how to work out, right? Like, we're all fortunate enough we fell into it and it hit us in the head and we got into it. But like, when you graduate high school or university and you enter the workforce, it's like, you're kind of just expected to figure out going to the gym. And so then it turns into like, oh, that sounds fun, right? Like, I hear my clients that I used to train that they're like, oh, is it cool if I go to bars? Like, do you want to go to bars? Like, well, all my friends are going, then go. I want you to go for 6 weeks.
And that
just
has to
fall
do
off after 6 weeks.
If everyone likes them, it's like, how do you fall into fitness? The people you like or that you relate with, or all that stuff. Like, she relates with mom and going to bar class. Like, that's how fitness is for me. I thought Joe was
have
sick.
either of you guys ever done a bar class?
No, never do one.
It's fucking brutal. Dude, I did it like twice and I like could barely walk.
Which is also fun.
You get your ass handed to you, like, just because like all the mass and doing ISO holds for an hour.
Yeah.
In range isometric holds for an hour.
Yeah, and it's all moms and they're like going at it and I'm like, no.
But like,
you guys ever go to spin? You ever been to a spin class?
Oh yeah.
And watch someone just beast out on you. You're like, I'm a pretty conditioned. Like, I manage HRV, I manage my heart rate, I manage, and you're like, you are on the 20 level and just jamming. I'm like
and yelling at you the whole time.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
The manifestation of what you do and who you follow is literally based on who you like. Like, even like our influences, but like Joe DeFranco and all this stuff. Like, I like fucking the fact he's training like best athletes in the world. There's chains that look cool. That's why I did the fitness thing. I think that if you kind of understand that, you stop trying to copy like what Jordan Syatt's doing. And like, it's helpful, do stuff like that sort of. But Jordan also had a training business. He trained Gary Vee. He did all this fucking shit. Like, don't do that, because you need to be the person someone wants to follow. And you're, like I said, you're unlikable. Like, you said, people talk about strength training, they're not even jacked. Like, does that make a difference? Honestly, probably. Because I'm like, people, as much as they say, oh, it's like the coach and blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, most people look at the person. Sorry. Like, I would trust Joe with my life at that point, because he was in a fucking grad with chains and shit, jacked, bald, and all these NFL players. Joe could be the stupidest person in the world.
Kegs.
Yeah, he could be the dumbest person in the world. I'm still going to buy his program. So that matters. Sorry.
Yeah. Appearance, I mean, who you associate with changes your perception, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's how I got as big of a reputation as I did. Is like, oh shit, right? Were you just at Eric's spot? Yeah. Were you just in LA at Exos? Yeah. Were you just over here? Holy shit.
And then clubs got big, and there's kettlebells with the Ironman stuff on it, and like, you're like, essentially, like, that's how I first like figured out about you and all this stuff. It's like, you're into that shit, but like, I'm not into it, so it wasn't like what I do. But they're on, it's big because of Joe Rogan and all that stuff, and it's like, you get street cred by being credible at the thing that people respect the street cred
Yeah.
for. It's just
Well,
like,
and
if
it's,
you
know,
like
it's
gangbangers,
knowing
like,
those people and knowing everyone. It's like things really definitely changed for me within the industry when I could walk into a room and most professionals knew who I was or knew something about me. And I can say, if they didn't, I could say, well, you know, like, hey, I've written for Men's Fitness, I've written for Muscle and Fitness, I'm in Flex, I'm on this website, I'm on this thing. Like, I have credentials, and it might not seem like a lot, but it builds your confidence. And all of a sudden, going into, like, the first time I went to a fitness conference and I was like, and then I walk in and I'm talking with the speakers, because they're like, oh, what's up, dude? Hey, it changes things.
especially because I think most, and maybe I'm pulling shit out of my ass. I think a lot of people are operating under the guise of they want to help people to do this content. I'm going to reach the user and get clients, when really they actually don't want to do it. I think, like, they're like, don't try to impress other trainers. That's what everyone's doing. 100%. Like, I can think of very few people, I think, that are posting content to get clients. A lot of them are copying to say, hey, I'm good at this thing. It's like, just get bigger or get good at that thing. Like, none of us, and not even that we're the best example. You're probably the best because you worked at True Coach and on it, but you're like, yeah, on it, True Coach, fucking taught seminars. These are my boys. Like, that's a bigger deal than, like, my fucking Instagram post. Like, and that's what gets lost, is like, you have to establish yourself within the industry that you want to be a thing, or whatever that fucking thing is.
Yeah.
Like, that's why a lot of people up there haven't tried, because they just did their fucking, what they're good at. They did their job and they networked. It's fucking, they're done. That's what you should do. I don't know. That's my rant. Sam, that's a Sam rant.
Around, like, connecting with people, right?
Yeah.
Like, going in, like Jeb, you talked about going into your first fitness conference, like, oh, kind of, but then you keep going, you meet people, you get to know people. They're like, and like, oh, you want to go impress Eric Cressy with something? Hey, man, I read every single blog. I still had a question about this. Whoa, no one's asked me that before, right? Like, you guys know Raj Law, who used to be at Mark Fisher's.
Yeah.
Right. He interned at Cressy Sports Performance after only being at the YMCA because he drove from Michigan to Boston.
He's a
to
crazy
hand a
story,
resume in.
though, of, like, he has what a lot of people wanted, like a job at Mark's and, like, knowing all these people. He literally wasn't even in the fitness industry. He liked training and drove to a fucking seminar, and, like, essentially you applied for a job. But, like, that's not that big of a concept. Like, just do that. Like, that's probably the first thing you should have been doing. Like, now it's like jump straight on Instagram. Like, Raj Law is actually a perfect example of, like, doing something the old school way, and just it worked because he was a dude.
And being respected by a lot of people for just being a good person at what they do, and that's helping coach people, right? Like, that's the thing that our industry cares about, is the craft.
Well, and again, you talk about like being relatable. Like, when people will say, I mean, because I've done this in a few different industries now. I've kind of leapfrogged my way up to where I wanted to be in multiple industries, and I think that's given me, you know, in hairdressing, like, my goal was, I wanted to be, you know, I wanted to have my work in magazines. I wanted to be a hairdresser in New York City. I wanted to be a fashion week. I did everything I wanted to do. I achieved all those things just by the same thing, as I'd find someone who I thought was the best in the world at what they did. And I'd say, like, hey, I'm going to come work for you. And they're like, I don't know you. And you're like, it's cool. Just so you know, I'm not leaving until I, you know, fucking work for you. And then I'm going to, if it's cleaning toilets, cool, done. What do I need to do? And then working your way up. And then the same thing in fitness, I was like, I found people. Now, it wasn't totally transactional like that, because there were people I liked and they became friends. But when I go to these, like you say, when you go to these conferences, when I sit down and talk to people, you see the people that kind of work their way up in the industry as, when I go and talk to someone, like, we sit down and we just talk about whatever. You see the people who come up and they're like trying for that transactional, because they read about networking in a seminar or something, and you're like, just dial it down, be yourself. Like, stop trying to, no, they don't give a shit about what you did, because they have done that. Like, they just want to have a normal conversation. We're all the same. We're all peers.
Mm-hmm. And that's, you know, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and it's a fitness conference. Like, no one's fucking millionaires at these fucking fitness
like, two people are,
like,
you know,
they're not
like,
all-stars.
Cressy
like,
is and Contreras maybe.
Yeah, but they also have, like, a really busy life and job. Like, they should make money. They have a career just like anyone. Like, you live in New York, you have clients. Like, there's a lot of people make a lot of money, and you wouldn't even know who they are. It's like, just relax. Like, we're all trainers. We get it.
Yeah, my clients who had money like
Like,
that
fuck you money.
the richest person in the fitness industry couldn't even fathom.
Yeah.
When you get in the world of fuck you money, you're like, oh,
You're like,
yeah,
oh,
okay.
yeah.
You're on it. They've got all.
Can I buy you a cup of coffee? Cool. I feel good about life now because that's
Like, the only thing you bring to the equation is you don't treat them like they're on a fucking pedestal because they're used to it. It's just like,
so that's it right there, right? So like I can hear people saying that, like especially with my story, it's like, well, of course you got to rub shoulders with all these people because you worked on it, and it's like, yes, that gave me something of value to potentially offer to open the door of dialogue and communication. Right? Hey, do you want to come host a seminar? Your seminar on it? I'll help promote it. I'll help you run it. I'll work the booth, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. I have something of value. Oh, have you ever tried a mace before? I'll send you a mace. Here you go. Try it out. Oh, you want to go to lunch? Right? Like the first seminar I went to was the NorCal Fitness Summit, which was a terrible event but it was John Russin was there, Perry Nicholson was there, and Mark Fisher was there. And I was just working the booth on it. Right? Like it was and so I was like, hey, I'd love it. And I remember I went up to Mark. I was like, hey, I would love to take you to dinner while we're here. And he's like, yeah, okay. I was like, okay, here we go. We sit down, pour a glass of wine, and he was just like, so what's your angle? And I was like, oh, out of the gate. And I was like, look, man, if Mark Fisher Fitness puts on a protein powder, Alpha Brain in your stores and needs a wholesale account, like I think that's cool, right? It's only $200 to have a wholesale account with us at the time. Like if that's of value to you, I hope that's awesome. Great. But I could give a shit if you put protein powder in your gym. But I want you to know that I support the Mark Fisher fitness vision. And I want you to know that whatever resources I have, I want you to support you. Right? So then I went to his first Business for Unicorns out in Chicago, went and saw him in New York a couple of times. We just kept hanging out at different events. To then it was getting asked to come to speak at one of his things and doing this and like the same thing. Like Eric Cressy's like I followed him for years and they posted a thing about medicine balls breaking because they do a ton of medicine ball work. I was like, hey, what's your address? I'm going to send you a bunch of medicine balls, right? Open the door, just happened to send some clubs and maces. But then he kind of figured out because I'd been training Jake and one of Jake's, Eric's guys hit me up, was like, hey, I'd love to come work with you. And I reached out to Eric, said, hey, it's your guy. I would be happy to either administer your program or if you want me to do whatever, like I'm happy to, it's your person. It's not my person. And then I went out and saw him and then he invited me out to his baseball mentorship. Right. And like Smitty, back to Smitty, he was there at the baseball mentorship as well. That dude took more notes than everybody in the room. Absolutely.
Every time.
Like you want to talk about
to this day,
the smartest guy in the room, acting like the dumbest guy in the room, being the best student. Like Smitty Diesel's that guy, great human being. But like, that's for me, like I was able to get into On It at making less than $45,000 a year to get this position to where like, oh, I have the ability to rub shoulders with people, right? Like I'm Sam at On It still. Eventually it got to, oh, On It comes with Sam if we bring him, right? But it was at that time when you're all of a sudden the director of strategic partnerships at On It, you're like, who's not going to have that conversation, right? Like, I want to know what you have going on. I just want to see what the kids got. I don't know, right? And then it turned into a game around just getting in the room with people. And then like your network is only as good as the people in it, right? And true trust is your willingness to share your network with someone else. And because I'm not going to introduce you to my friend if I think you're going to make me look an asshole, right?
Right.
So then as you start doing all these favors all the time and just being around, you become that like, oh, you know Sam? You know Sam? Holy okay, right? And then like you're introducing people and you're just always around. You're at every single, like what event wasn't I at for a minute, right? I was at every single event and you just happen to consistently be there doing nothing but like, hey, how can I help support you? That'd be cool. Let's talk about that. And you earn the ability to converse because you prove time and time again, like that's valuable, right? The way I look at it, especially with like athletes or influential people, of course it's valuable for you to have a conversation with them.
Yeah.
Is it going to be valuable for them to have a conversation with you? And how do you make it feel like that person walks away like, holy shit, that person was, wow, I have not been impressed like that in a long time by someone, right? And because for us, we do get salty, old, and jaded about the process. Like I hate to be that. I walked uphill in the snow both ways to school as a kid. But when you make it in the fitness industry as someone who, when you get to a point where you're very proud of what you've done, you've accomplished things, you've got a nice network, you're protective over it because you know what it took for you to get there. and these young kids trying to come in, it's not that I don't want you here. I just want you to go through it the right way. And it's not that I need you to go through bodybuilding or powerlifting or lift the most weights, but I want you to honor the craft that is coaching or is this. And for you to get really good and for you to really build a great reputation, you have to honor the people that have laid the path for this to be a thing for you, right?
Well, a lot of that is just being a lifter. And this goes back to that argument of should you look the part and all this stuff. Is at the end of the day, these networks, like you said, they want to trust. Let's just assume they're going to trust. They want to trust you with their network. They're not going to trust a dude who doesn't do it or they know doesn't have the chops. You have to have.
I've got this old street kid mentality too. I'm not going to vouch for you because if you're putting my fucking name, if you're carrying my name, you better fucking carry it right. Because if you embarrass me in front of these people, I'm going to bust your ass. So if I always say, I'm if I put my stamp on somebody, if I say this, that means that I trust them with everything. I trust them with my family. If I will vouch for somebody and say this guy is good, it means I'll send my mom to him as a client, or my sister, or and I think that's I think that's what we all come with. And so when someone's hey, can you introduce me? It's look, I'll give you their email address, but we don't stamp my name on it until you've proven yourself to me. And I think that, like you said, the young kids are hey, can you do? And it's whoa, slow it down.
And creating, and this kind of comes full circle. So I always want to bring it back to this because it's really hot right now. But creating shitty content, shitty simple content. Actually, if you are an imposter syndrome person or whatever, you should be very afraid because if one of these people goes and looks at your shit, that's what they're gonna see. Fucking done. I'm sorry.
Social media is your digital handshake.
Yeah.
Right. If I don't know you and I want to see what you're about, I don't have a huge following, but I have some influential people who were following me, whether they wanted to see what was coming out of On It or the way I thought about things to whether they can trust me. Right. So that allowed me to post content, not because I was trying to build a following, but because if people don't necessarily like what they see from On It over here, then I want them to know that this is where it also comes from. And this is what you're seeing. And that's going to give the people that trust me.
But also I think to your credit, above and beyond that, is there anybody that has spent any time with you or met with you or talked with you that says, I just don't like Sam very much? Probably not many, right?
Yeah,
and so
I haven't met anyone yet, but there might be someone.
When you like somebody, and Dean is probably one of the most abrasive human beings on earth when you first meet him, but he fast tracked. People want to know what's the hack? Go spend 2 years on the road, go to every single thing you can, meet every single person you can, then abuse them mercilessly on the internet, and you might be able to fast track, because he did. Now, he spent more money than most people probably make in their first 5 years, but he did it the right way.
Yeah.
And it was networking.
Very similar. I didn't get a job On It, but I have a really good job right now, and I have a network of stuff. But it was just I looked at, and partially similar to you. I came from outside of this industry, but I saw essentially all the shit that I make fun of now. I still make fun of it, but because I don't think it fucking works. Because why it doesn't work? Because I looked at it, I was I'm gonna do the opposite of that, and then it worked. And I know it works now. At the time, I didn't for sure. But I just don't want people wasting their fucking time with because there's not that much time to make that jump. Even though I know we can talk about people per 10 years into it, but they didn't have shitty influences. They didn't have influences like the John Roosens, all that stuff. They were just performance coaches. They basically created the standard, and it was they didn't know what they were following back then. They were just trying to be good at their jobs, which has been fucking lost. All I tried to do was everyone sucks at fucking training. I'm just going to learn all the information, learn from all the best people, and just be good at it and then figure the rest out later, because I'm looking at everyone and they suck. And again, maybe they don't suck, maybe they do, but I looked objectively at all the content coming in. I'm everyone's weak. They suck. They're not they don't know anything about biomechanics or anything. And I'm not even in the industry, and I know this because I spent fucking 15 years lifting. And then I step into it, it's almost like a joke. And I really truly don't want the Fit Pro world to be a joke, because the people I learned from that created this standard, I know they're not jokes, even though foam rolling and everything gets trashed on now. Those dudes were all fucking lifters at heart. Yeah. And it's definitely, I don't want it to be changed to now the bullshit that I'm seeing, which is, yeah, I don't know. That was another rant, but you know what I mean? Like it has changed, and like I'm trying to create, because the guys who are like all the John Russo stuff, they're kind of coming back a little bit, but they're gone. Like they're fucking creating, they're on a different fucking stratosphere. They don't even care about influencing it that much. Where before they created it. So who's gonna fucking do that? You have to make fun of them a little bit, I think.
Right. Well, and it has to be our generation, right? The ones that are still eclipsing the next level of their careers. The downfall is the people, like the content creators to us are the people that are at the top, and we're still watching the people that we admire at the top doing their thing, and we're still digesting, right? Like I know for me, like, yeah, I know a lot, but like you want to go do that thing? I'll just go send you over there because they're the best. like I'm good. They're amazing. And it's like, I understand. And like, I get every coach gets scared and they're trying to carve out their image. And I hope you walk away from this through all of this and understand that you don't need to carve out an image in this industry by like bashing other shit or trying to like, fight and think that this strategy works. The strategy that works is learning how to connect with people. Yeah. We were all a day one, week one trainer at some point in time in our lives that probably have different messages now than we did day one, week one. However, we are also confident in the journey of the information that we have gone to, and we can backtrack exactly where we were in our careers, who we were learning from, how we got influenced by things, moments in time, people we've worked with that have influenced how we do things. We are very proud of what we get to do with people today, having gone through it and learned things wrong prior and going, holy crap, that would have helped me so much, right? Like I want nothing but I don't want there to be a 75% attrition rate in this industry. I want there to be the opposite, but I also want coaching to get better. Do I care that you do kettlebell goblet squats? No, but if you're going to coach them, I care that you coach them well. And I care that you coach your people to move well and understand and feel confident in what they're doing, right? And that gets so lost is the willingness, like the craft of how you deliver is going to be different, right? Like I've taught Group X, I've taught like, and it's really cool. Honestly, I've been stopped twice in different cities by someone who's like, hey, you're Sam, right? Yeah. You used to teach a boot camp on Saturdays at 10 a.m.? Yeah. Oh, I haven't found anything ever like that again. I'm like, that's so cool for me. I love that, right? What a huge honor for someone to remember me like that, right? Do I coach boot camp style in a one-on-one session? No, but the person who's into fitness for boot camp and that's what's getting them to go every day, awesome, right? Now, you might hope to be the person that helps them go from boot camps to structure and long-term success. And you have to figure out where they're at. Like, I know, like, you know, we're all probably not the most sympathetic, empathetic people in the world. So are we the best person to touch the brand new person that's never even been exposed to the gym before? No. But there's someone else out there who's really good at talking to that person, right? Mark Fisher Fitness is a great example of a niche that you can do just like that. And that is okay to be that person. But let's look at Mark's message. It's serious fitness for ridiculous humans. His coaches are all very well taught, right? And they're able to express themselves in a way that makes them feel individualistic. But that's why you start going to all these seminars that are out there right now. I know the world of certifications got really popular for a few years, especially a couple years ago. And everybody was coming out with their new hip hinge and flow or whatever bullshit seminar they were doing. And I took everything. Like I was taking most of the stuff. And some of it's really, really good. But the thing with teaching a seminar is you're teaching a base of principles that you have learned over a period of time that you think can be valuable for this group of people. And so when you have someone teaching something that hasn't been doing it for a long time, like it's going to get lost. There's not going to be that much oomph to it, I guess we'll call it. And so for us in this, like, but what these coaches who are delivering is a system, right? Do I think that Animal Flow is better than PPSC, CPPS, FRC, Mark, whatever, whoever, Ben House, Mark, RPR? What they're doing is they're giving you a lens of perspective to look at your craft from and then be able to find success consistently. And then you are able to say, okay, oh, what else is out there? Oh, what happened over here? Let me learn more about this. That's how some of these people get into these rabbit holes around things like metabolic flexibility, because you just got such to be a nerd around metabolism. You kept taking classes on metabolism, right? Or whatever you end up doing. And that's why some people who are really good at, they want to get really good at lifting. They coach the squat, the hinge, the whatever.
Which that gets lost. So that's another thing too, because before we have to close up, but I mean, like, they don't they don't take those internal cues of like interest and passion, because they're like, well, this person said to do this, so I'm not going to do this. It's like, listen, like that's that inner monologue thing. You should probably, that's super like wooey, but you should probably trust the shit you're good at or like, because there's probably something there. And that comes to be understanding what you are good at and what you're not. But like Mike T. Nelson knows exactly what he's not good at. Like he'll ask us about coaching some certain stuff and he'll be like, whoa. And I'm like, Mike thought that was cool.
Right.
It's because Mike knows his deficits, but Mike also knows
everything.
Like,
but I think coming back to like, and this is why I tend to bring up Mark Fisher so much, is because I go to like all of his courses, all of the things he does. Never in my entire life in lifting in any way, shape, or form would I ever want to coach at Mark Fisher Fitness. I don't think I would ever want to go there to work out. Nothing about it. But yet he still is a driving force in the way I think, in the way I want a business to run. And I think people get closed off by embracing systems or things too much. Whereas I do like, what does Mark really do? He takes a lot of stuff from stuff he's read. He puts it together in a package and tells you like, hey, here's the things that I found valuable. I'm a successful businessman. But beyond that, here's why. Even though his outward image and the things he does have almost zero application in image to what I want to do. But in essence, it's based in values. It's based in like empathy, compassion. It's based in meeting people where they are. It's based in learning from all the avenues we can. And I think that again, people get caught up in the image or the system, as opposed to looking at the values, where that's where again I come back.
It's
to
not
him
the dildo on the wall. It's not the sauce.
No,
it's not. I don't know.
No, you're 100% right.
Yeah.
But also, we like Mark too. Mark also meatheaded out. Like Mark likes to meathead out.
That's the crazy thing is Mark, again, not that I didn't have respect for Mark, because I knew Mark's history. I had him on the podcast and stuff. But Mark posted something where he's like, I'm going to focus on my diet, and like got fucking shredded. And I'm like, damn, like this dude's still like a bro. Even though Mark's Mark and like he's super flamboyant, does all that stuff, Mark is still, again, it comes down from that. What do we think Mark is because of Mark Fisher Fitness? Again, 8, 9, 10 years ago, all those dudes crushed because that's all their influences were all magazines and lifting and periodization and like basically being meatheads. And like, I feel like the new generation needs to kind of remember that, because Mark's teaching a bunch of stuff, but Mark's a meathead. Cressy's teaching a bunch of stuff,
because
but
Cressy
still posts Cressy still posts his 600 deadlift once a year.
And Cressy's another one. Like Cressy talking about the shoulder. I see now when I'm at a party and someone's like, hey, how's business going? What are you working on? And I start talking about my model for how I see behavior modification, and it relates to, emotional eating and therefore fat loss. And I see their face go,
yeah, like don't give a fuck.
That's how I feel when Eric starts talking about the shoulder. I don't give a flying fuck. I don't want to be him. Like I'm like, this is not interesting to me. But yet you get, Tony Genicourt's wife, I work with, Lisa Lewis. You get her and we get on the call like twice a month at least. And I talk to her, and she starts talking about the neuroscience, thing she's going to this weekend, and how it relates to behavior change. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome. So it's just finding that thing that you're like Dean said, what you're into, and doubling down.
Yeah. Yep. Because then you take your experiences and you put them through the craft that you've learned. Now you have a way to connect with someone, and then you have a value to offer that is an actual solution. If all your solution is in this industry is writing down exercises and making you sweat, you won't have a long career in this industry, nor will you ever be able to charge a value enough that makes this a life that you can actually live. Most people look at online coaching as feet up on Fifi Island, right? And doing remote coaching, like, oh, I'm drinking a Mai Tai. And it's like, sure, you might get to that. The people who could do that don't, because they just don't like doing that, right? But like, in order to do the online thing, if we're talking about all this in-person stuff, now you have to take that thing and do it online. When I show up to your website, that's the exact same way it feels like when I walk up to you at a conference. Hey, Sam, how's it going? Holy shit, your bio, your About Me page just makes me like want to hang out with you. Oh shit, your sales page is like, how do I not want to train with you? Oh, I go look at the social media. Oh, this guy does stuff I actually like doing. He's into blah, 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 this or that, or this or that. And he does the fitness, or she does the fitness, right? Like that's how the whole picture works.
And you gotta fucking capitalize. You got to be that thing too, because on the other end of the equation, you have this big, beautiful image and stuff, and you meet them in person. There's a few people where I'm like, get the fuck out of here, like, because they're so not that thing. And so I think like you got to be both. Like I know it's like you can make money online and stuff, but like if you want to network and stuff, like you still got to be that thing.
And if you just want to live a happy life, like if you're not being true to yourself, you're gonna be a miserable fuck.
Well, that's it, right? Like you have to live within your values, right? And for so many people, fitness, while it's a thing that they would love to value more, it's something that they haven't had that thing that drives them to want to do it, right? Like my hope is you get into something like, oh, you want to hike that mountain faster next summer? Great, let's get you lifting. Let's do you a little bit more work. Let's help you do this, right? Oh, you want to swing dance with your wife? Oh, you can't get down on the ground and play with your kid? Oh, that's where I want fitness to enhance your life, not because I give a shit about you doing a snatch test.
That's a thing too. Like, and I didn't learn it from Ben inherently, but we talk about like the change after people lost weight and then like the turnaround point. And again, the research is like exercise is good, but it's nothing without that connection to something physical and like internal. And usually the people that are successful can find that thing. And that's kind of our job to connect it. Because a lot of people, like you said, they don't want to fucking lift. But if they wanted to hike and they figured out lunges was the way to do it, then you might get them. But like that's where most of our jobs lie, is not convincing the meatheads that are already meatheads to lift more. It's the other people.
Like, they don't need
How
us.
do you?
They
Let me
don't
ask
need
you guys this: how do you guys look at that from being meatheads yourself, having competed in lifting and been deep in it, and then you take that mindset into nutrition coaching with middle-aged moms and housewives?
This is an easy one. Don't be me. I'm a psycho. Like seriously,
I love it. I love it.
Especially with nutrition coaching and just coaching in general. It's like I've done all this shit. Like I'm stupid. I've injured myself. I have fake pillars of identity based around strength, so I count on my food and do all this stuff. Like I had to shed all that to even see any success. It's sweet if you're not even there. That's the easy part. And so I don't know. That's usually my way. It's easy to come from that vantage point because I know all the wrong shit to do.
Yeah.
My angle for most of my clients is first working from an education standpoint, like, hey, here's to come out of it. But the people that struggle the most are people that deal with a lot of emotional eating. They're coming with a lot of trauma. Like I'm not here to fix trauma. I'm not here to fix their psychology. But what I can do is I can relate. I can say, don't look at me as this lifter. You want to talk about how I relate to you. I was a fall down, functional in some way, shape, or form, but drug addict and alcoholic. Like I've been to jail a bunch. I've been to rehabs a bunch. I've done all the things that struggle. And so, I might not have been overweight. Never had a problem. In fact, I've always been underweight. But what I have done is I've known that there's something out there that I just, for some reason, couldn't get a handle on. And when I did, my life got better. And so we can figure out a way to hopefully try to get a handle on this thing for you and make your life better. Now, how do we do that? I don't know, but we're going to try to find out.
That's coaching in a nutshell. I think a lot of people can't make that connection because they think that they need to be this thing. It's like it's a human experience. At the end of the day, you just need to figure out what that connection is. I don't think a lot of people can do that because they're too busy copying what the right way of doing things are, as opposed to evaluating your own personal experience and then be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes to then create a connection. And if you do that, you're fine. But that's experience. I don't even think it's experience. I think you just have to understand what your life experience is. 20 years, 30 years, there's still experience there. Just most people can't draw upon it because they can't reflect and they can't do it. I think you do it subjectively. It's hard to do it objectively. So that's nice having people in your network that call you on your shit. Real easy to learn that way.
Mm-hmm. Let's say you guys worked for Stronger You, and you weren't in a system that had an overarching company. Obviously, I've come from those worlds as well, having on a coach. How would your business look differently now, today, if you were on your own?
This is an easy one too for me. I wouldn't do it. I'd go back to fucking teaching because like that's not my strength, and I don't really want to. Like I'm a life balance person. I want to do the things I want to do, and a lot of them isn't coaching. Like I don't want to fucking coach 24/7. I want to go on my boat and lift and do all their shit. So I would find some other place to work. So that's an easy one. I think that's another thing is like a lot of people. Yeah, like just knowing that you don't got the chops to do the online trainer thing. Like, and I'm sure that they could build it if they really wanted to, but I know I don't want to do that. I'll work for a company and take a cut and fucking enjoy life.
for me, it would be more of a therapeutic model. It would look a lot more like potentially group therapy, or it would be a much more cohesive, comprehensive thing. You know, I would want to work with an MD and a PsyD and an RD, and really try to see this more as a multidisciplinary approach. Versus you know, I think macro coaching has its advantages, but it's also very limited in that it is very effective for a very small group of people who are already trying to find a different approach. So it wouldn't look like the thing that's out there. Again, I'm always someone I'm trying to think of like, what can I do differently that would affect have a greater affect. So but it also might not be cost effective. It might not be a way to make money because it also is very time consuming.
But that's where it's like, so hearing his story, so that I kind of know where his head's at. But Jeb has a lifetime. He knows how to make money. He also has a wife that is a way different situation than Buddy off the street. He's like, I'm gonna create this perfect fucking thing. It's like, yeah, you need some money first. Like, I'm trying to, my mortgage will be paid off in 3 years. Like, I'm fucking good. I could not work and like I'll be fine. That allows me to do things a little bit fucking differently than you, 21-year-old dude who wants this perfect thing. You know what I mean? Like, and that gets lost too. Is like trainers are bad with money in life. And like
behind every, me and Pat were having this joke one time. I was like, behind every successful guy I know in this industry, or not everyone, but a vast majority of them, is a wife with a good job and health insurance. Like, or if you're Canadian, you already got health insurance. But for us Americans, you know, So, but like Pat's wife has a great job. My wife has a great job.
Ben's wife has a great job.
Brings in a ton of money. Like all of our friends, like we're able to step out and be riskier because they had financial support.
Yeah. It's something super important. Like my undergrad was in like assessing startups if they were going to be successful. Right. And so to look at, hey, you might have a dope idea. There's a lot of dope ideas out there, but your dope idea being a business that's scalable for where you're at right now is not always the thing. And that's the inevitable game. Like you might have a thing that might be the thing, but are you willing to build it from scratch where it is now? Right? The career wagon, you can move wherever you want. You can choose where to get off, right? And that's just the thing, is like, is it what you are signing up for right now?
And you'll make different choices too. Even like, I'm not gonna, like, your true coach, like whatever that did well for you. Again, that allows you to do things, we'll call it the right way, but it's like the way in which you're doing things is like hard to replicate because of your prior success. 100%. But you can definitely get people there. And I think that's kind of where it's interesting, because those stories get lost.
But like Sam, you just posted about your change you're making, right? Like lifestyle. So we can put that out there. It's okay now.
Yeah.
Like you're also like, I'm gonna go like just roll around the country and live in a van. Like I mean, I'm past, like I can't do that. Like I'm excited because we're gonna move down south, and you know, I'm getting a mortgage for like a third of what my rent in New York is for a place that's like 3 times the size. So all of a sudden, like, I'm rich now. I'm fucking rich. I'm leaving, you know. But like for you, you're like, I'm gonna go hang out in a van and like sleep in a camper or whatever. So you're like, you are now giving yourself a freedom.
So funny story. I know a guy who is like, he's actually big on Instagram and Mountain Mike, but Michael Dietrich, he now lives in a van. He was on Naked and Afraid and has all these sponsorships and all this stuff. Fucking, he made tons of money as a personal trainer anyways. Big income, like 6 figures, whatever. Now he lives in a van. Dude is like rich. Like, I won't say, but like with zero, like he has a nice van, like $100,000. Like it's like actual Sprinter van, decked out and stuff. But that's not a lot of money. Like, dude can quit his job right now. He's like, I can literally do whatever I want. Like, that's a different solution to a problem that most people don't even get to think about, because their rent is like, they have to work their 20 sessions just to break even. Then they got to make money. Then they got to go figure out how to get education and meet all these people in network. And so it is hard. You know what? You should do the best advice: get a wife that makes a lot of money, or stay at home.
Yeah.
No, but like for real, like I think like if you look at a lot of people that did that, Tony Gentilcore, same thing, had a wife. Like all these people aren't doing it on their own. There's very few people outside of Ben Bruno. And
it's, I mean, you have to make consolations, right? Like, sure, I didn't make a great salary on it, but I had a great platform and a great opportunity that got me to put me in a spot to do a lot of things. But, you know, if I get someone who would reach out like, oh, bro, I'm so jealous of what you get to do. And it's like, hey, I appreciate that you admire what you see me doing.
You're poor.
Are you willing to be on an airplane 67 times a year? Are you willing to be in a hotel? Right? Like
our first podcast.
That sounds fun. It's not.
It's not. And even when I was traveling, it sucked. And like we actually talked about this your first podcast. Like you travel literally, I think it was like not 2 weekends, anyways, all the time. It's like you probably lost 10 years on your life. Yeah. And now you're just trying to fix it. You like, I haven't slept for 2 hours longer. Like we were talking about your sleep stuff. You're figuring all that shit out now.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember Dean and Anthony were like sleeping in a queen size bed together for a year, pretty much, because every time they showed up at a seminar, they could only afford to get like a room in an Airbnb.
It was not a queen size, dude. It was a double. For real.
Like the world of seminars, like it sucks because I got to see so many people who could come to seminars, and trainers do well enough on a regular basis to pay for $1,000 cert and a flight and a trip and do the things. But then, like, I remember I taught a kettlebell workshop at 24 Hour Fitness, and one of the people came up to me afterwards, and it was me trying to like schmooze my way to get a bigger deal, right? Like I volunteered, I did it for free, right? And someone came up to me, it was like, I've never learned fitness in person before. I was like, what? Holy crap. Okay. Yeah. Looking at the industry, like I out of the gate had people to learn from. Oh, this is how you squat. This is how you deadlift. This is how you clean. This is how, and you learn in person. I'm learning at meets. I'm learning at competitions. And like, oh, and I think the person, it's not that the people, where imposter syndrome, I think, and I'm not quoting science. I'm not a scientist or a social scientist or anything. I honestly think where that imposter syndrome comes from is yourself knowing that you just haven't gone out there and gotten the reps.
You're an imposter.
Earn the right.
This is the cost of it. Fucking $60,000 over two or 3 years. I didn't feel like an imposter. I'm sorry. I didn't have that fucking problem because I paid it. I paid the price. Like I know more than you do because I fucking paid for it.
I think Sam just brought up a really great point that I haven't really thought. I mean, I guess I kind of thought about it, but we all do come from a really privileged place where we basically walked into mentors. We basically walked into an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
Like all of us, like Dean, you apprenticed through sports and then through powerlifting. I mean, you were working with Brian Carroll and like all these super, and then, paddling. And I walked into, I my first training partner for real when I started lifting was Hyson. And this guy is an encyclopedic knowledge of, so who's writing my training programs? It's Smitty. It's John Meadows. It's Steve Pulcinella. It's like all these heavy hitters in the industry were like, hey, let's let's call this guy and see what we should do to increase our bench press. And like, that was my network. And I don't take any of that for granted, but you're right. I don't have imposter syndrome because I learned from the source. Mm-hmm. And I never thought about that, but that's a really great
privilege
point.
to say I don't have imposter. I'm sure I do. Like I do think.
Well, I mean, at
but
times.
like I don't know. Like there's enough. This is another thing.
What is it? What is imposter syndrome? Is it you having the fear of putting yourself out there? Because that's just like
that's normal.
Our own gauge. It's like, if you're not a little scared to, get your whistle tickled, right? It's gonna be like that's the exciting part. Like I said this to someone else. Like I love being a little scared. Right. I'm a pretty confident go-getter person. Like for me, I was like, fine. Like I made the decision to move from Portland to Austin, like that. Fuck it. Let's go. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The Boulder situation was different because I got recruited, which was really cool. And then now I was like, and a friend, Kendra Sato, who I was talking to, I was like, God, I'm just having a hard time not being angry at this true coach thing. I'm having a hard time being creative, getting over it. She's like, that's so heavy, bro. You got to let that go. And I was like, fuck it. Let's move. Let's get out of here. Let's get rid of everything and go.
And I hate the marginalized imposters, whatever. Everyone can feel the way they want to.
Yeah.
Like we were in a Q&A for this nutrition mentorship thing with Ben House. Anyways, I'm messaging Jeb because I came a little late. I'm like, I'm so fucking lost. Ben's too fucking smart. And that's not imposter syndrome. I have no idea what he's talking about unless I feel stupid saying stuff. And so, and I have a little bit of an idea, but I have enough of an idea about stuff to know I don't know anything. That's not imposter syndrome. That's like, I'm not as smart.
I need to learn. Yeah. Well, and so what's so funny is so we had that Q&A, and then the next day, yesterday, I was doing an interview with AARP because they're trying to figure out how to motivate low-income diabetic women into getting into better health. And so I'm sitting down talking to this woman, and it was like I felt dumb as shit 12 hours earlier, and then I'm talking to this woman, I'm like, holy shit, I had no idea how much I know. I have no idea. And I messaged Dean and Ben both, like I said, thank you guys for pushing me like you have the last year, because insufficient knowledge. It's not imposter syndrome. It was like, oh, I need to do more. I need to learn more. And that's how you get better. And I think you're right. I don't think that's imposter syndrome. I think that's just like, hey, know your deficiencies and be self-aware.
Like everyone I see that says imposter syndrome, like I'm like, yeah, obviously you don't. Sorry, and I'm super judgmental in that sense.
No.
But a lot of people who like talk about it, it's like there's probably a reason for that. Sorry, like it's not. If you could do it, you would have fucking done it. Like that's all I think.
Like
I don't know.
Teaching workshops at like the NSCA or having people like John Musson come to your workshop when like you're exponentially more classically educated than I am.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you want to go down the rabbit hole of the tarsal hitting the ground and then causing a chain reaction and turn the gastroc off to increase glute recruitment, I can't do that. Right? But in this room of a bunch of physical therapists and master's degree students, I'm like, hey guys, look, I am not in it at your level here. However, all of you want to work with athletes and all of you want to be able to coach other coaches and build a team, right? Great. Guess what? While you and I might like loving learning at how the acetabulum and the femur interact to make our squat depth better or deeper, depending on the person, that person doesn't give a shit about it. You know how I coach the squat to someone if I don't really get a lot of time with them? Squat as low as you can before you start looking like your dog taking a shit in the park. Oh, yeah. You understand what that looks like? Yep. Cool. Don't go that low. Oh, right above it. Oh, right.
It's understanding your strength though. So and that's where it's like, I know people talk about like, oh, I got invited to present at this thing. And like, I felt imposter. And what is everyone thinking? That's just normal nerves. It's like, it's like, just understand what you're good at and fucking slay it. Cause like I can, and this is how I do it. Maybe this is whatever, but it's my deadlift. Jeff. It's like, you go to a strength conference, like here's my resume. I'm bigger than that dude. So I'm not the worst here. So like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that people don't understand their strengths enough to know, like, listen, those are
honestly what has made and Dean and I, and of course I lumped Dean and I together because we've spent the last like 2 years like really kind of working on a lot of similar stuff together, you know, and we push each other pretty hard. But like, what have we learned the most from is from going in and surrounding ourselves with the smartest motherfuckers we know. I mean, when we had to present in Costa Rica, like it was in front of Tommy Wood, who's a neuroscience PhD and a medical doctor, Dr. Mike T. Nelson, Ben House, and of course I'm presenting on mindfulness. And who comes to the mindfulness talk but Ben's dad, who's a Buddhist priest. So like, you know, and it's like we go and do these things and it's like, yeah, you get nervous, but then when you start riffing and those guys go like this, like good work, then you're like, oh shit. Like,
yeah,
okay.
You know what you know. Like with my high flux thing is like Eric's challenging me a bit, but like and I'm like, oh, I kind of know this stuff. Sweet, I can talk with Eric. But I never looked at it like they're trying to crush me. But like they started asking me, well, what would you do coaching? I'm like, oh yeah, I coach way more people than anyone in this fucking room other than Eric. Yeah. So like done. You know what I mean? Like I think it's finding I don't even know where we're going with this, but it's just like finding the value in the thing that you do, but you got to put time in. So
and that's earning your chops, right? Earning your chops keeps you from feeling like you haven't, because it's like, look, and if I don't know, I have the smartest mother effort in the world to ask, right? Like,
see it.
Yep.
Like, I think that's ego too. I think people like they think that they need to know stuff. It's like, listen, I know I don't have an imposter syndrome because this is what I know. I don't know as much as that fucking dude, and I'll fucking say it. I'll admit it. Like whatever. I benched 440, but I think like that's my solution to it. It's like stop bitching out about this stuff and like just call it for what it is. Like,
experience wins, right? Like a lot of people say they are experts out there, right? But it's like, okay, you can say what you know and what you don't know and all the things and your degrees. And like, even people with advanced degrees, like you can say you have all these letters I don't have, but let's play who's gone out and built it and experienced it and done it in real world. And right. Like I'll play that game all day. I love playing.
And don't let him, this is another thing we do with the nutrition clients and stuff about their why and like not doing the shit because they're why, but like don't not do stuff because you have this quote unquote imposter syndrome. You're just using it as an excuse not to fucking get better. Like, and that's the way I look at it is like, don't let it precede the fact that you're not going to do the work. Like, it's just a red flag to say, hey, like maybe I should be better at this thing. Yeah, maybe you should then. Your fucking brain's telling you that. Like, it's not imposter syndrome. Like, go get work done.
Pick up a book.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunately just the world that we live in, right? Like we live in a world of abundance with food is not a scarce resource for people in America where we live, right? We have electronic delivery services to bring you the thing that you want. It's the right time. It's the time you want. Dude. We have wheat, right? Like we have all the things to sustain that life. And if we're wired, like if you're wired to survive, you're not going to choose to not have the thing that is in front of you. And if it's that easy to get all the time, like, we have to talk about these things now because of the world that we've built.
Yeah,
right?
You gotta
Like,
fucking remind people, like, it should be hard. And like, that's why I don't feel bad telling people that. And again, I'm not the best at everything, but I think not enough people,
Definitely
I think
not
a lot of
deadlifting.
people are giving people free passes for being little bitches about stuff. And like, that's fine. I am also empathetic for like real life nerves and anxiety and all that
Yes.
stuff. But I'm very confident saying that's not you. Shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? Like, I know people with actual anxiety and depression, and we'll call it imposter syndrome. Like, you're not one of those. Like, you're fucking trainer presenting at this thing. Like, life's pretty fucking good. Relax. You know.
I taught this adaptive athlete workshop, and everybody that showed up to this adaptive athlete workshop had not been born adaptive. They all had some sort of trauma in their life to make them there. And there was a girl, she was 21, and I remember looking at her and asking, like, hey, I'd love to learn, how long have you been in your chair? And just, learning her story. And she's like, well, I've been here about a year. And I was like, oh, were you super into fitness before this happened? And she says, no, I just figured I should learn how to be in my new body.
Yeah, that's legit.
How old are you? 21? Holy shit.
Yeah.
Oh, I know I would be the angry asshole for a long time.
That's
Then I said, how do you, like, what did I say? I said, I asked her how it happened. And she's like, oh, I was sleeping and my mom walked in my room and shot me.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Like, you have this attitude. I'm like, so for me now, I look at the world of fitness, like, I don't care. Like, it's beyond sets and reps. It's beyond calories and macros. It's like, do you have it in you to want to say, nope, I am not going to do that. I have the discipline to say, I want to be better than that. Because some people get dealt shit hands, right? I know we've talked about this in other podcasts, but like, every day I look at the fact that, like, the other option for me should have been living on the street in Korea, maybe surviving. So this is all borrowed house money time. So why not like sell all my shit and go on the road? Why not move to Austin on a whim? Why not just go try? Why not walk up to that person and say, hey, I'd love to help you out?
Stories are powerful. Like, a lot of we can say that, but like, it's true. Like with Joe DeFranco, it's like the main thing that got it was like, he's like, I'm a fucking blue collar, explains his story. I started in the closet, I did this, this, and this. And I'm like, it just gives you perspective that I don't think a lot of people talk about.
I mean,
and then they only talk about like the fucking good stuff. It's like, nah, like, shut the fuck up.
I still talk about my perspective day was one day I was doing dishes and I was like, fuck, man, this is a good life. And someone was like, what? I was like, I'm getting to do dishes. They're like, why? I was like, I was facing a 25-year sentence.
Yeah.
I should be in prison right now still, but things went my way and I'm not. I get to fucking wash my own dishes. Like, this is a good night. And it was like that night, and it kind of hit me. I was like, fuck, like you said, this is all borrowed time. And I think all of us have that moment. Like, something could have gone a different way in our lives and all this shit. So like, I think that's kind of how we end it, right? This is all borrowed time. Like that's fucking powerful, man.
We're not total cutthroat, but it's like, there's just been some evaluation perspective that I think if you have that, or like, you can at least go search for that, you'd be better off. Yeah.
Well, like, I'm a competitor. You guys are competitors, right? Like, I don't want to compete against people who aren't trying, right? Yeah. I want to know how hard I'm working. I want you to go as hard as you can, so I know how hard to go. And that way we can get in the middle. I'm like, nice. Great. I respect that.
We all made ourselves better, each other better in the process.
Yeah.
That's the best
it's
part.
that competition isn't necessarily trying to bring someone else down. It's just all of us trying to bring each other up.
Yeah.
That's it.
So figure it out. Okay, Sam, we'll close up where this is actually going to be. I think this might be the longest one that we've ever done on both podcasts.
With me? Weird.
Yeah, I think it was the second longest one was your fucking first one. Where do people find you, and just kind of highlight the new stuff you go on? Because I know it's changed since last time we talked.
Yeah, you're good, man. SamPogue.com is where I'm kind of housing everything from blog content, YouTube content, programs, online coaching. Instagram is still a good place to find me, SPOGUE86. Those are probably the two primary channels. I mean, Facebook gets some love and LinkedIn gets some love, but those are the two areas you can find me, sampogue.com and Instagram. You'll start seeing the new updates kind of going forward from there.
Cool. Anything else, Jeb? You good?
No, man, this is great. Thank you.
That's right. I have wrestled with an alligator. I done tussled with a whale. I done handcuffed lightning, throw thunder in jail.
You can't stop me.
I'm going to win. It ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward.
I won't quit. I'll just keep getting stronger.
Stronger?
Stronger. Stronger.